Chapter 1195. Heart of the Fire God. Go to hell. Yi Qinghan's heart was surging. As long as he got the heart of the Fire God armor would be complete. With this supreme spirit treasure ranked first in the divine realm, his strength would immediately increase. At the moment he didn't care about anything else. He once again waved 10 God-Slayer spears and charged toward the patriarch of the Fire God clan. The 3 lower-level experts also came to their senses. They each launched their own attacks and charged toward the patriarch of the Fire God clan. However, what made Yi Qinghan almost furious was that the figure of the patriarch of the Fire God clan suddenly disappeared in the air without a trace. When Yi Qinghan immediately spread out his divine sense to search, he found that the patriarch had appeared thousands of miles away. At the same time, his body continued to move in the direction of the Western Islands. Boom! Yi Qinghan's God-Slayer's spear and the 3 lower-level experts, as well as Zhu Yi's space power, collided at the place where the patriarch of the Fire God clan originally stood. The collision of the energies broke out a huge explosion, and a huge and gorgeous firework bloomed in the air. How could it be? Yi Qinghan was shocked. Looking at the grand firework, he couldn't believe it. Such a powerful energy attack, the surrounding space shook layer by layer. How could the patriarch of the Fire God clan teleport? Why don't you chase him? Yi Qinghan looked coldly at Zhu Yi. Seeing that she didn't show any signs of moving, he asked discontentedly. Oh, if we chase him, we'll be in trouble. Zhu Yi smiled faintly, and there was a touch of helplessness between her eyebrows. She explained, First Elder has already rushed over with people, and there is a powerful prohibition on the Fire God Island. I'm not sure if I can escape unscathed. Alas, it's a pity. If your attack could come a second earlier, or if the Fire God took out the heart of the Fire God a step later, he would not be able to escape today. Yi Qinghan was stunned. He did not hold back his divine sense and swept over unscrupulously. Sure enough, he found that an upper-level peak expert with 8 people had teleported to the border between the Eastern Islands and the Western Islands. Obviously, he found that something was wrong and suppressed Zhu Yi first. At this moment, the patriarch of the Fire God clan had returned to the largest island of West Wind. The Fire God's heart can allow cultivators to teleport while space is shaking? Yi Qinghan recalled Zhu Yi's words and was startled awake. He transmitted his voiceover and asked, God, you don't know? Zhu Yi glanced at him with confusion. Zhu Yi, and the patriarch of the Fire God, and explained. God, Fire God armor heart. The heart of the God armor God. Yi Qinghan started to have a headache. This time the Fire God patriarch had escaped. From the looks of it, the Fire God patriarch and the Grand Elder would definitely join forces. It was impossible for him and Zhu Yi to kill their way to the Fire God's heart. As God. Yi God clan as God clan of the sect of clan of Fire, Yi God clan God as God. Go back first. Believe in Zhu Yi. You will get the heart of the Fire God. Zhu Yi replied indifferently. Her face was filled with an enchanting smile. She recovered her composure as if she had everything under control. She grabbed the 4 divine crystals with her jade-like hand and slowly walked towards the fiery island with her graceful figure. She was extremely flirtatious. Yi Qinghan clenched his teeth and glared at West Wind. He followed Zhu Yi and flew toward the island of Fierce Flame. The 3 war gods became Yi Qinghan's attendants and flew toward the island of Fierce Flame with complicated expressions. The island of Fierce Flame was not far from here. The earth-shattering battle happened in a few seconds. But such a terrifying energy had already attracted the attention of the nearby experts. Yi Qinghan followed Zhu Yi back to the island of Fierce Flame. Countless experts fixed their eyes on him as if they were looking at a monster. Is he still the peerless genius? Zhu Tai looked at him as if he was looking at a stranger. Pierre was also confused. Fortunately, Zhu Yi directly entered the transportation formation. Yi Qinghan let Zhu Yi explain this troublesome matter. He entered the transportation formation and returned to the general's mansion. At dusk, Zhu Yi came with a fragrant wind. Yi Qinghan did not pay attention to her. He sat alone in front of the window and stroked a zither. He pretended not to know anything about the zither. He just randomly plucked the strings as if he was messing up his confused heart. What's wrong? Are you discouraged? Do you want me to send you away? Zhu Yi stretched out her hand and brushed the window. She leaned half of her body against it. Her full breasts were slightly deformed, her slender waist slightly sunk, and her plump buttocks were raised high. She left half of Yi Qinghan's perfect side face, as if she was deliberately tempting him. As expected, Yi Qinghan was attracted by Zhu Yi's slightly raised buttocks. He unscrupulously glared at her and said coldly, "You can activate the transportation formation?" "Of course I can activate it. It's just that I didn't get the heart of the fire god. Are you willing to leave?" Zhu Yi felt Yi Qinghan's gaze. She did not move. She turned her head and said with a smile. There was a playful look in her eyes, as if she was sure that she could take advantage of Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan looked at this pair of beautiful eyes and Zhu Yi's seductive figure. At this moment he suddenly understood many things. Zhu Yi was indeed a bamboo leaf viper, a poisonous red spider. She had been using him. At first she used him to lure out the fire god patriarch's people. She did not expect Yi Qinghan to be so strong. She planned to sacrifice him to kill a few experts from the fire god patriarch's side. His super performance today made this woman look at him in a different light. At this moment she was afraid that he would want to leave because of the difficulty of obtaining the heart of the fire god. Therefore she deliberately tried to rope him in and did not hesitate to seduce him. After thinking things through, Yi Qinghan's chaotic heart immediately calmed down. No matter how smart Zhu Yi was, she would not have thought that he could leave through the endless void. As long as he did not kill the fire god and the Grand Elder, Zhu Yi would definitely not attack him. Instead she would continue to rope him in. Ever since Yi Qinghan's identity was discovered by Zhu Yi, he felt that his hands and feet were tied. In addition, his safety was not guaranteed. He did not know if Zhu Yi would attack him. Therefore he was extremely frustrated and wanted to leave several times. Now that he had guessed Zhu Yi's thoughts, of course he had to play with her. At this moment Yi Qinghan's gaze became even more unscrupulous. He stared straight at Zhu Yi's buttocks as if he could see through her light green robe and see the ravine inside. He smiled and nodded, saying, "Indeed, I am very reluctant to leave." Zhu Yi straightened her body and chuckled. "Child, you don't be anxious. Zhu Yi guarantees that you will definitely obtain the heart of the fire god. However, it will take some time." Yi Qinghan sneered in his heart. Not to mention the heart of the fire god, he was afraid that his life would be handed over to her in the end. However, on the surface he frowned and asked doubtfully, "Miss Zhu Yi, do you have a good plan? Forgive me for being straightforward. Since the island of the fire god tribe leader has a powerful restrictive spell, as long as he hides inside, we dare not go in. How can we kill him then?" Zhu Yi smiled like a fox, her eyes full of slyness. "I have my own arrangements. Please forgive me for keeping you in suspense. You will find out in 100 years. Okay." Yi Qinghan plucked the strings of his zither, stood up happily and laughed. "Then I will give you 100 years. If you still cannot kill the fire god tribe leader in 100 years, please send me away. I will definitely not get involved in this mess again." Yi Qinghan's decision this time was extremely abrupt and resolute, causing Zhu Yi to stare blankly for a moment. However, she recovered in an instant. After a moment she actually extended a soft and boneless hand and said with a smile, "It's a promise." Seduction again. Yi Qinghan laughed in his heart, but he boldly stretched out his hand to grab Zhu Yi's small hand. He even lowered his head and pretended to be intoxicated with it. Only then did he reveal a charming smile and said, "It's a promise." Haha. Zhu Yi covered her mouth and laughed. She swayed her plump buttocks and floated away, leaving behind a fragrant wind. Yi Qinghan looked at Zhu Yi's beautiful back and smiled coldly. He murmured, "Want to play with fire? Let's play then. I've been a playboy for many years. Let's see who will play to death in the end." Chapter 1196. Once Zhu Yi left, Yi Qinghan activated the barrier and extended his divine sense. He scanned the entire Western Islands without any scruples. The Grand Elder and a few 9th-grade war gods stood in the air between the East and West Seas. After half a day they returned to the north. It was obvious that they had reached some sort of agreement with the fire god. Yi Qinghan had a headache. It was obvious that his appearance had broken the balance of power between the three sides. He had forced the fire god tribe leader and the Grand Elder to join forces. As long as Zhu Yi made a move, the two sides would definitely join forces. Seemed like his killing methods were too strange. In addition, Zhu Yi had always been crafty. The Grand Elder and the Fire God would not dare to attack the Fire King Island if they did not figure out his true strength. After figuring out the situation, Yi Qinghan did not think too much and let Zhu Yi deal with this headache. He transmitted a message to Zhu Yi that he was going into seclusion to cultivate. Then he leisurely entered the War Imperial Hall. He was very clear that the more mysterious he was, the more the Fire God and the Grand Elder would not dare to make a move. This would be beneficial to Zhu Yi's arrangements. The entire pavilion was set up with some small restrictions. As long as someone approached or used energy to attack, Yi Qinghan would immediately know. Hence, Yi Qinghan was prepared to make use of these 100 years to peacefully cultivate and see if he could make any breakthroughs. The War Imperial Hall was empty. Before he returned to the Flame Dragon continent, Yi Qinghan teleported all the people cultivating inside out and let them continue to cultivate in the reincarnation mystic realm. Only Xiaohei was still sleeping soundly in the Slaughter God Blade. After becoming a spirit body, Xiaohei loved to sleep more and more. However, this also reduced the energy consumption. Yi Qinghan walked into the hall of the mysterious tablet and stood in front of the space combination stone tablet. Divine power revolved in his eyes and gradually brightened. The scenery in front of him also gradually changed. What appeared in front of him was a scene that Yi Qinghan could not understand. At first it was pitch black. Then there was a sudden flash of light in the darkness. The light slowly enlarged and the world in front of him became brighter and brighter. Finally there was a sudden flash and the whole scene turned black. A moment later there were countless twinkling stars. This repeated playback caused Yi Qinghan to be puzzled no matter how hard he thought about it. What kind of principle was this mysterious diagram describing? Light, darkness. Yi Qinghan was baffled. Was there something wrong with this mysterious diagram? There was not a single fundamental law of space in it. Yi Qinghan had once suspected that this was a profound diagram of the light and darkness laws. However, the Battle Emperor had already fallen into a deep slumber, so there was no way to investigate. Yi Qinghan had studied this painting countless times, but he couldn't see through its artistic conception even after hundreds of years. Even with the profound mystery diagram, he couldn't comprehend anything, let alone fusing the spatial combination. After studying for a long time, Yi Qinghan retracted his divine power and stopped cultivating. Looking at the countless stone tablets, he was in a daze. His comprehension of the laws was stuck. The strength of his soul wasn't increasing. Yi Qinghan felt that it was impossible to increase the power of the Godslayer spear using the power of space. For a moment, Yi Qinghan didn't know what he should do. If he couldn't increase his strength, why would he go into seclusion? Could it be that I, Yi Qinghan, can only stop here for the rest of my life? Yi Qinghan raised his hand and slammed it heavily on the stone tablet. With a wave of his hand, a black jade box appeared in his hand. This was the primal chaos divine crystal that Lord Devour had given him. At this moment, Yi Qinghan had an urge to refine it immediately. As long as he refined the primal chaos divine crystal, he knew that with his own means he and Zhu Yi could definitely kill the Fire God Patriarch and the Grand Elder easily. After obtaining the Fire God's heart, he believed that he could fight against a Grade 9 Supreme Martial Artist. He could fight against a Grade 9 Supreme Martial Artist, but could he kill Xianxia? Yi Qinghan sighed and put the primal chaos divine crystal back. Xianxia could control a lot of the power of space. Now that he had obtained the position of the divine world's overlord, he could control even more power of space. He didn't need to use any means. He just needed to use the powerful power of space and the purest energy to crush him. So what if he obtained the Fire God battle armor? If Yi Qinghan really thought that he was invincible just by wearing the Fire God battle armor, then he was an idiot. The Fire God battle armor was definitely more powerful than any battle armor. With its reputation, it shouldn't be a problem for it to withstand a few attacks from a Grade 9 Supreme Martial Artist. But if he really became a living target for Xianxia and was attacked continuously, Yi Qinghan believed that he would die even if he had 9 lives. Currently, there is no way to cultivate the nomological laws. There is also no way to cultivate the soul. It seems that I can only think of a way to increase the power of the Godslayer spear. Yi Qinghan pondered for a while and teleported to the largest hall. He stood in the hall and continuously released the Godslayer spear to see if he could improve it and increase its power. The Godslayer spear once again danced in the War Emperor Palace. According to all kinds of strange angles and combinations, it developed all kinds of different attacks. Yi Qinghan closed his eyes and stood in the hall. He didn't think too much and started to study and comprehend it wholeheartedly. Fire God Arcane Realm. Yi Qinghan and Zhu Yi suddenly stayed in the great general's residence on Fire King Island and didn't take a step out. And Yi Qinghan's aura also disappeared in the great general's residence. The Grand Elder and the Fire God clan leader couldn't figure out what Zhu Yi and Yi Qinghan were planning. They wanted to make a move several times but didn't dare to do so in the end. Zhu Yi's intelligence was too terrifying. Back then Zhu Yi's strength was only at lower rank 9, and her lineage was almost destroyed. But in the end, it was easily resolved by Zhu Yi's sowing of dissension. After that, the Grand Elder fell into a trap again and was seriously injured by a spy arranged by Zhu Yi. He almost died. This time the Fire God clan leader was even more miserable. He was almost annihilated. At this moment the Fire God clan leader was like a bird startled by the mere twang of a bow. The Grand Elder sent him several messages to join forces to attack Fire King Island, but in the end the Fire God clan leader didn't dare to come out. Zhu Yi's sowing of dissension made the Fire God clan leader still deeply wary of the Grand Elder. He was afraid that the Grand Elder would secretly attack him and snatch the Fire God's heart. Recently Zhu Yi and 3 lower rank 9 martial artists had been staying in the great general's residence and didn't take a step out. In addition, Yi Qinghan had disappeared. After the battle the 3 parties didn't make a move. The Fire God mystic realm was like a dark cloud, and a storm was about to pour down. It was incomparably depressing. This God Slayer spear seems to have achieved great success. I have cultivated it for several years but there is no progress. If I don't break through the divine principle and my mastery of space power doesn't increase, the speed and power of the God Slayer spear can only reach this level. Within the War Emperor Palace, Yi Qinghan opened his eyes and spat out a mouthful of turbid air. He had been cultivating for a few years, but his strength had not increased at all. Yi Qinghan decisively stopped cultivating. I wonder if Yaoji is doing well in the cave? Lord Devour and fireworks should be in the void outside the Fire God mystic realm. With the Soul Emperor Pavilion, there is no danger in the endless void. Lord Devour's strength is a little weak. Otherwise the Soul Emperor Pavilion could break the void and come in. They could join hands to destroy the Fire God clan leader. I don't have to walk on thin ice here anymore. Every step is difficult. Yi Qinghan felt helpless. His thoughts drifted to the endless void outside the Fire God mystic realm. He seemed to see a 9th grade pagoda flying slowly around the Fire God mystic realm. The Soul Emperor Pavilion? The Soul Emperor Pavilion broke the void? All of a sudden Yi Qinghan's eyes brightened. His pupils moved quickly and the faster they moved the brighter his eyes became. Finally he slapped his thigh and laughed. Bah! Why didn't I think of that? The Soul Emperor Pavilion spun at high speed, bringing the origin energy with it. This way it can easily penetrate the origin energy and enter the plane. I can also make the God Slayer spear spin at high speed. Won't it be easy to break the origin energy on the surface of the enemy's body and kill them? Goddammit, I am a genius. Chapter 1197. The genius design of the Soul Emperor Pavilion came from the super brain of the Soul Emperor. The reason that the Soul Emperor Pavilion was so famous and the reason that the Soul Emperor became a supreme refiner was because it had 2 genius designs. The first was that it could automatically absorb energy and the second was that it could easily break apart source strength. It was because of these 2 points that the Soul Emperor Pavilion was able to wander freely through the endless void. Yi Qinghan had praised the genius design of the Soul Emperor Pavilion before, but he did not think that it could be combined with the God Slayer spear. Now that he deduced it, it was completely feasible because the God Slayer spear was supported by the source energy. If he could control the God Slayer spear to spin quickly, he could also drive the source energy on the surface of the enemy's body to spin. From there he could pierce through and kill the enemy. This is possible. If it suddenly spins when attacking the enemy, as long as he gets close, even a 9th grade supreme will die. Hehe. The more Yi Qinghan thought about it, the more excited he got. If he succeeded in cultivating this enhanced version of the God Slayer spear, he would be much safer in the Fire God secret realm. He might even be able to kill the Fire God in a second, obtain the Fire God's heart and escape immediately. He started to think about it carefully. First he simulated it in his soul spirit sea. Then he slowly tested it and practiced it. Finally he stabilized it. Just as Yi Qinghan was about to comprehend it, His heart suddenly trembled and he opened his eyes. He realized that the small restriction in the pavilion had been touched by someone. As he was not sure what was happening, he immediately took out the God Slayer saber, surrounded his body with the source energy and teleported out. Everything in the pavilion was the same as before. Only the restriction on the courtyard's door had been touched. Yi Qinghan used his divine senses and realized that there was a beautiful maid standing respectfully in front of the sect master. She was Zhu Yi's personal maid. He had seen her once before. "What's the matter?" Yi Qinghan sent a cold voice transmission. The maid bowed and said respectfully, "My lord, Her Majesty the Empress invites you over." "What is Zhu Yi doing?" Yi Qinghan thought curiously. He had said that he was going into seclusion and was not to disturb him if there was nothing important. Could Zhu Yi's plan have succeeded so early? He scanned with his divine senses and found that Zhu Yi was in her pavilion. He sent a voice transmission. "I got it. You can leave now." After locking on Zhu Yi's position, Yi Qinghan teleported and appeared beside her. However, he realized that he was in her bedroom. Zhu Yi was standing in front of the window, holding a glass of wine and looking at the beautiful scenery in the backyard. Her figure was graceful and charming. He glanced at her and asked in confusion, "Miss Zhu Yi, why are you looking for me? Why can't I look for you?" Zhu Yi tilted her head slightly and smiled faintly. She picked up a cup of light green wine and took a sip with a leisurely expression. He sat on Zhu's white jade Emperor Zhu Realm God Zhu's Emperor spear. And sat Master of Emperor. Yi Emperor of Slayer Emperor. Yi Emperor. Yi Zhu Emperor of Yi Emperor of Ming. Emperor of Zhu, Emperor Yi of Yi, was Zhu Emperor's Emperor Yi Emperor Ming is Yi. Emperor, do you want me to accompany you? He young Master Yi, you don't have to pretend to be so lustful. I know you are not that kind of person. Can you change back to your original appearance? I want to see. Zhu Yi turned around and leaned against the window. She crossed her arms and held the wine cup. Her posture was elegant and her aura was intoxicating. His eyes were glowing and filled with affection as if he was trying to seduce Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan thought about it. With Zhu Yi around and his powerful divine senses, it would be impossible to hide from the two of them if someone tried to investigate. His facial muscles twitched and he changed back to his original appearance. He looked at Zhu Yi with her mouth agape. Yi Qinghan returned to his original appearance and felt comfortable. He stopped thinking about God Slayer Emperor Spear and decided to see what Zhu Yi was up to. "Lady Zhu Yi, how can you be so sure that I am not interested in you? No man would not be interested in a beauty like you. Honestly speaking, Lady Zhu Yi's temperament and appearance are definitely in the top 5 of all the women Yi Qinghan has seen. I'm very interested." Yi Qinghan dared to tease her again and Zhu Yi could not take it anymore. She blinked her beautiful eyes as if she did not understand why Yi Qinghan dared to tease her so brazenly. Was he not afraid that she would kill him? However, no matter how smart she was, she did not expect Yi Qinghan to be able to escape from the endless void at any time. It was easy for Yi Qinghan to enter, but it was very difficult for him to leave. In order to activate the teleportation formation, only she or the fire god Grand Doyen could do so. Thinking of this, Zhu Yi felt slightly at ease and did not tempt Yi Qinghan anymore. Instead, she said seriously, "I invited young Master Yi here today to discuss something with you. Please speak." Yi Qinghan smiled faintly. It was a very comfortable thing to be able to make this intelligent woman suffer. Zhu Yi recently thought of a plan. If young Master Yi is willing to cooperate, perhaps in less than 100 years, we will be able to kill the fire god. You will also be able to obtain the fire god's heart and leave as soon as possible. Zhu Yi's eyes began to shine with the light of wisdom again. Her calm and confident expression made people involuntarily choose to believe in her. Yi Qinghan was stunned. He did not expect Zhu Yi to have 2 ways to accomplish something that he could not do. He asked in confusion, "How do we cooperate? If I can do it, of course I will spare no effort." "It's very simple." Zhu Yi placed the wine glass in front of the window and turned her head with a sweet smile. She was so beautiful that she could topple cities. She looked at Yi Qinghan in a daze. Then she swayed her voluptuous body and walked leisurely to the side of the jade bed. With a wave of her hand, she opened the room's barrier. As if she was afraid that others would hear, she sat on the jade bed and whispered into Yi Qinghan's ear, "As long as young Master Yi teaches Zhu Yi this transformation method, I can only arrange it. The two of us will sneak to the fire god's side and then launch a sneak attack. The fire god will definitely die. Once the fire god is dead, the Grand Elder will no longer be a threat. Yi Qinghan's heart suddenly raced. Listening to the whispers in his ear, smelling the faint body fragrance on Zhu Yi's body, feeling the hot body next to him, Yi Qinghan had the feeling that he was seeing the enchantress for the first time. This was a seductress like the enchantress, a seductress that could charm people to death. On the surface he pretended to be seductive and soul-searching. However, Yi Qinghan's heart was trembling. This Zhu Yi actually used a seductive technique on him. And it was a very high-level seductive technique. It was a high-level seductive technique that could make people unknowingly fall for it. If not for the strength of Yi Qinghan's soul and the enchantress of the enchantress race, he would have fallen for it long ago. He immediately told Zhu Yi the cultivation method of the spectre transformation. He was so fascinated by her that he answered all her questions without holding anything back. Yi Qinghan had long been on guard against Zhu Yi, which was why he was not charmed. He sneered in his heart. This lass was indeed a bamboo leaf. Once he helped her kill the fire god and the Grand Elder, the next person to die would be him. Since she wanted to scheme against him, Yi Qinghan didn't have any scruples. His breathing became heavier and he didn't answer. His eyes turned red and he reached out to hold Zhu Yi's waist. His other hand touched her fragrant shoulder. He swallowed his saliva and said, "Miss Zhu Yi, you're more intelligent than others. I think this plan is feasible." A trace of disgust flashed in Zhu Yi's eyes. However, she immediately giggled and covered it up. Her jade-like hand pressed on Yi Qinghan's hand on her shoulder. She smiled charmingly and said, "Young Master Yi, you're being rude to me." Yi Qinghan laughed coldly in his heart. His other hand quietly moved down and ruthlessly groped between Zhu Yifeng's full buttocks and cleavage. Sure enough, it was extraordinarily plump, smooth and bouncy. Seeing Zhu Yifeng frown slightly, he immediately stopped while he was ahead and hurriedly said in an ambiguous tone, "This transformation ability of mine is called the Spectre Transformation. It was created by me. If you want to cultivate it, you will need to have my blood essence, cough. In other words, you will need to fuse with me. Miss Zhu Yi, since you want to cultivate it, I can only be rude to you." Chapter 1198. Young Master Yi, you aren't lying to Zhu Yi, right? Zhu Yi's eyes were full of smiles. Her eyes narrowed into slits and she smiled like a fox. Yi Qinghan pretended to be stunned. He quickly patted his chest and guaranteed, "Why would I lie to you? Have you heard of anyone in the immortal world who cultivated this divine art? I killed an ancient spiritual beast in the myriad god cave in the South Sea of Stars and devoured its blood essence and demon core. I obtained its inherited memories and obtained this divine art. I have done many experiments. If it is purely cultivation, it can only change one's appearance but not the aura of the soul. You have to merge with me and have my blood essence to completely change the aura of the soul. Why don't I teach it to you and you can try cultivating it to see if it works?" Yi Qinghan's eyes were filled with sincerity. He spoke as if he was serious and even expressed that he was willing to let Zhu Yi try the secret art. Zhu Yi couldn't tell the truth and hesitated. Yi Qinghan looked at Zhu Yi's towering breasts and sneered inwardly. "You want to cheat me of the secret art, but you don't dare to use your capital?" Yi Qinghan started to act mischievously. He quietly placed his hand on those proud peaks and gently pinched them. His hand was full of fragrance as he pounced over and pressed Zhu Yi, who was in a daze on the bed. He used both his hands and feet to take advantage of her. His tongue hooked Zhu Yi's crystal-clear earlobe and his hoarse voice sounded, "Miss Zhu Yi, I won't let you down. As long as you also cultivate the ghost transformation, we will sneak into Fire God's side and he will definitely die. Unifying Fire God's secret realm is just around the corner." Zhu Yi was touched by Yi Qinghan and her earlobe was sneakily attacked. Yi Qinghan's breath entered her ears again. Her delicate body trembled and her face turned red. Her whole body became soft and hot. Her pair of beautiful eyes were like silk, chaotic and blurry. It was obvious that she was aroused and couldn't stand being teased. However, just when Yi Qinghan's hand quietly moved under her skirt and slid past her perfectly round and snow-white thighs, and was about to enter her pants to explore the ancient nether path, Zhu Yi suddenly woke up. Her body trembled and her face turned cold. God power burst out from her hands and she pushed Yi Qinghan off the bed. A faint murderous aura emanated from her, and the power of space swirled around her, locking onto Yi Qinghan, who was lying on the ground with a stunned look on his face. Humph. Miss Zhu Yi, what do you mean by this? Are you playing a trick on me? Although Yi Qinghan was also a little confused, he was much more clear-headed than Zhu Yi. As soon as he noticed Zhu Yi's faint killing intent, he immediately stood up and shouted coldly. If Zhu Yi didn't give him a reasonable explanation, he would leave immediately. Zhu Yi immediately panicked. She hurriedly tidied up her clothes to cover it up. Her face was full of sadness and pitifulness. She looked at Yi Qinghan and said, "Young Master Yi, this is Zhu Yi's first time. I'm not prepared. Can you let Zhu Yi think about it carefully?" "So that's how it is. Then I was rude. Miss, think about it carefully. Yi Qinghan will not let you down." Yi Qinghan bowed in shame. He glared at Zhu Yi, whose clothes were in a mess, and her face was full of indolence and charm. Then he teleported away. After returning to the pavilion, he casually set up a few small restrictions and directly entered the War Imperial Palace. "This is the first time. Does she think this young master is a virgin? I touched it a few times and it immediately turned into a vast expanse. However, after so many years, I didn't find that this girl had a lover. Why is she so sensitive? I only touched it a few times and this girl is really a beauty. Trying to cheat me of my secret skill? Don't talk about the door, there's not even a window." Yi Qinghan laughed. He had been suppressed by Zhu Yi all these years, and this was the first time he had a secret confrontation with her. He won and vented his anger. Yi Qinghan had already thought it through. If Zhu Yi had submitted to him just now, he would have only given her the first volume of the Phantom Change. Zhu Yi could only change her appearance when she cultivated it, but not her soul aura. Then he would lie to her that she might not have enough blood essence, and that she would have to have intercourse tens of thousands of times or something like that. Zhu Yi probably wouldn't pester him for the time being. Yi Qinghan was very clear that Zhu Yi was the kind of person who liked to play with people in the palm of her hand. Just look at the 3 lower 9th grade martial artists under her. She was the kind of person who would definitely not give her all unless she had no other choice or no other way. Yi Qinghan knew that he didn't have enough charm to make Zhu Yi throw herself into his arms. Therefore she definitely wouldn't casually fuse with him. Getting rid of all distracting thoughts, Yi Qinghan wholeheartedly studied the Godslayer's spear. Although he had roughly deduced the principle behind the strengthened Godslayer's spear, it was definitely not something that could be done in a year or two if he really wanted to make it extremely complicated. Furthermore, there was a possibility that some crucial parts would go wrong, and he would fail on the verge of success. His powerful soul spirit circulated rapidly, and Yi Qinghan started to repeatedly calculate, simulate and verify. Great General Lord's residence. Zhu Yi stood in front of the window, still holding a cup of fine wine. However, her expression was cold and a beautiful maid stood beside her. This maid was her personal maid and her strength was not bad. She was a venerable. The strange thing was that this maid didn't look at Zhu Yi with respect or admiration. Instead, her eyes were filled with love. Pa. Suddenly, Zhu Yi smashed the cup in her hand on the ground and said angrily, "Yi Qinghan, how dare you take advantage of me? In the future I will make you wish you were dead." "Your Majesty, please calm down." Not only was the maid not afraid, but she also took a few steps forward and hugged Zhu Yi's delicate body from behind. Her beautiful red lips gently sucked on Zhu Yi's earlobe and she said softly, "Your Majesty, there is no need to be angry because of a stinky man. We are only using him to eliminate the fire deity and the Grand Doyen. After this is done, isn't his death just a word from your Majesty?" Zhu Yi's body instantly turned limp and she leaned into the maid's embrace. She panted and her face turned red. After a long time she finally said, "Beloved, how are the 3 of them progressing?" The maid snorted coldly and said, These 3 stinky men are also not good people. They even tried to make a move on me previously. However, I said that as long as they cultivate diligently, after unifying the fire deity mystic realm, your Majesty will choose one of them as her husband. The 3 of them will immediately cultivate day and night, and I reckon that they will succeed in cultivating in a few decades. Yes, after this is done, kill the 3 of them too. Every time I see their eyes that look like they want to eat me up, I want to tear them apart." Zhu Yi's killing intent surged and finally when the maid behind her touched her, it slowly subsided. She turned around and said with a charming smile, I guess the parts of the fire deity battle armor are definitely in the hands of Yi Qinghan. As long as we kill the fire deity and the Grand Doyen, and then kill Yi Qinghan, the fire deity battle armor will be mine. Hehe. Once we get the fire deity battle armor, it will be the time for the fire deity tribe to reappear in the divine realm. Your Majesty, the glory of the fire deity tribe will be reborn in your hands. It's late, let's rest. The beautiful maid's eyes were filled with passion and her breathing became rapid. Zhu Yi waved her hand and the protective shield in the room opened. She turned around and walked towards the jade bed with the maid in her arms. Chapter 1199. Ha! In the War Emperor Palace, Yi Qinghan sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. Beside him was a silver spear that flew in the air at a very slow speed. Furthermore, his movements were not as nimble and agile as before. Instead, it looked very clumsy and slanted, as though it would collapse in the next second. Spin! Suddenly, Yi Qinghan shouted and opened his eyes abruptly. 2 rays of electric light shot out, and the God Slayer spear in front of him started to spin slowly. As it spun faster and faster, the pressure released by the God Slayer spear also became stronger. The space around the spearhead was actually torn apart layer by layer, and the aura around the spearhead was extremely terrifying. Unfortunately, the God Slayer spear only spun for a moment before it collapsed and exploded bit by bit. Done. Yi Qinghan laughed heartily and stood up. Although he looked very tired, his eyes were filled with joy. Although the God Slayer spear only spun for a moment before collapsing, since it could spin for a moment, it meant that his method was completely feasible. This was the same as comprehending the laws of nature. As long as one could understand it, the later stages would be much easier. In the future, one could continue to verify and experiment and eventually achieve great success. Once this God Slayer spear can completely spin, Zhu Yi, at that time I will be able to play with you. Yi Qinghan grinned. On the surface, his strength was only at the lower 9th stage because he could not use the power of space. Even if Zhu Yi was beaten to death, she would not believe that she would be able to kill him in one move. Zhu Yi was much stronger than him. In addition, she was also a soul cultivator and her soul was very vigilant. Even if she launched a sneak attack, she would immediately discover it. As long as she could use her origin energy to resist Yi Qinghan's attack, the one who would die in the end would definitely be Yi Qinghan. However, if the God Slayer spear could spin, would she still be able to resist it? The more Yi Qinghan thought about it, the more excited he became. The increase in his strength gave him the confidence to tangle with Zhu Yi in the Fire God's arcane land. In addition, he could escape from the endless void at any time, so Yi Qinghan's entire body was relaxed. Immediately, he prepared to continuously study and strive to control the God Slayer spear's rotation to the limit within 100 years. Chi! After resting for a while, Yi Qinghan waved his hand and a God Slayer's spear suddenly appeared out of thin air. It spun around him and turned silver. Then its speed suddenly slowed down. Then it started to spin slowly again and finally collapsed. Repeating this process, Yi Qinghan's divine sense locked onto the area, constantly discovering problems and looking for solutions, never getting tired of it. In the Fire God's secret land, it was still peaceful. 100 years had passed and the atmosphere was getting more and more oppressive. No one dared to sail outside the island anymore. Even the children felt that a storm was coming. In the great General Prince's mansion, in the most luxurious private room, the atmosphere of spring was thick in the room. 2 enormous snow-white jade bodies were currently intertwining with each other, rolling about, enjoying the pleasures of the bedroom. However, both of them were women, so they could only rely on tools to enjoy each other. However, this scene made people's blood boil even more. The sounds of moaning and panting rose and fell continuously, causing people's imagination to run wild. After a long time, accompanied by a trembling voice that exhausted all her strength, the room finally returned to peace. A cold breeze blew in from the window, diluting the decadent atmosphere in the room a little. Zhu Yi laid on the jade bed with her eyes half open. She hugged the beautiful woman in her arms and gently stroked her back. She asked softly, "My dear concubine, how is Zhu Li and the rest's cultivation going?" The pretty maid in Zhu Yi's arms smiled sweetly. "I went there 3 days ago. They should have achieved great success in their cultivation. We can act according to the plan any time. Your Majesty, congratulations, your plan is finally going to succeed. There should be no problem with the Grand Doyen's people." Zhu Yi's eyes lit up. She sat up and revealed her perfect upper body. She grabbed the robe at the head of the bed. The pretty maid quickly stood up and helped Zhu Yi put on the robe. She said confidently, "There's no problem. The sisters that I've arranged have already used soul worms to control 3 lower grade 9 martial artists. As long as you make a move, the Grand Doyen will definitely die." "That's great. It's been a million years. I've waited for this day for far too long. We can't fail this time." After putting on the robe, Zhu Yi pondered for a moment. She turned to the maid and said, "My dear concubine, go and invite Yi Qinghan over. This person is really good at hiding. If I don't summon him, he won't even take half a step out of the door." "Your Majesty, are you going to sacrifice yourself?" A hint of jealousy flashed in the pretty maid's eyes. She said unwillingly, "Your Majesty, it doesn't really matter whether he learns that shape-shifting supernatural power or not. We've already planned it for so many years. Why do we have to suffer? If he wants to obtain the heart of the fire god, he must cooperate with you. Don't worry, I won't let him take advantage of me. It's not like you don't know that I hate men the most. Go." Zhu Yi's face was full of disgust. The pretty maid had no choice but to teleport away. Zhu Yi waved her hand and tidied up the room. Then she took small steps and walked out of the small living room. She didn't want to wait for Yi Qinghan to lock onto her position and instantly enter her room. A moment later, the space in the small living room fluctuated slightly. A green figure appeared in the living room. It didn't transform into Zhu Kuang's appearance. Instead, it was Yi Qinghan's original appearance. "Miss Zhu Yi, what business do you have with me? Could it be that you've thought it through? You want to learn the spectral transformation from me?" Yi Qinghan's expression was relaxed. He sat down beside Zhu Yi and picked up the cup of tea beside him. He filled it up and sipped on it. Ugh. Zhu Yi didn't expect that Yi Qinghan would become more and more debauched after coming out of seclusion for so long. She had seen through his identity at the start and suppressed him in every way. But now he didn't seem to be afraid of her at all. Zhu Yi didn't like this feeling. She always liked to toy with others in the palm of her hand. Now that someone was trying to jump out at her, she felt very uncomfortable. However, she was the one who had suggested learning the spectral transformation. Now she could only bear the pain. She smiled faintly and rolled her eyes at Yi Qinghan. "I won't hide it from young Master Yi. When Zhu Yi was young, I saw the women of my clan being raped by the men of the fire god's bloodline. So, I've always been a little afraid of being intimate with men. Young Master Yi, is there really no other way?" "I see. Miss Zhu Yi's background is very pitiful." Yi Qinghan sighed deeply and looked at Zhu Yi pitifully. His face was full of sincerity. Suddenly, he stretched out his hand and grabbed Zhu Yi's hand. The expression on his face became even more sincere and his eyes were filled with love. He said sincerely, "There's no other way. Actually, Miss Zhu Yi, the love between a man and a woman is perfectly justified. Only by forgetting the past can you truly be happy. Don't worry, Yi Qinghan will definitely love you well." Looking at Yi Qinghan's incomparably affectionate and sincere face, Zhu Yi felt at a loss. She secretly cursed herself for scheming against others for her entire life. Why did she dig a hole and bury herself in it? Most importantly, Yi Qinghan was the strongest ally in her plan. She must not let their relationship become stiff at the moment. She forced a smile and was about to explain something when Yi Qinghan leaned over. He lifted her up with a pair of strong hands and walked into the room. Chapter 1200. Even Zhu Yi, who was extremely intelligent, panicked for a moment. Yi Qinghan's domineering manly aura was different from that of her pretty maid. The woman was feminine while the man was masculine. They were like two poles of magnets that would naturally attract each other. Moreover, she couldn't find a good excuse at the moment, so she panicked. By the time she calmed down, she realized that she had been thrown onto the bed. Then Yi Qinghan's strong body pressed down and two thick lips sealed her small mouth. A pair of large hands had already quietly attached to her mysterious area. "No, you can't." Zhu Yi's heart was in a mess and she wriggled. This time she only wanted to summon Yi Qinghan to test him and see if there was any other way. If there was no other way, then forget it. She wanted to rope him in, calm his heart and prepare for the plan that was about to start soon. However, she didn't expect Yi Qinghan to be so domineering. They didn't talk much and he wanted to do her directly. Hiss! The sound of her robes being torn apart could be heard. Zhu Yi suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. She discovered that her robes had already been torn apart by Yi Qinghan, leaving only a pair of short pants. Her voluptuous twin peaks were completely exposed, and were currently being wantonly played with by Yi Qinghan. Bang! Zhu Yi completely sobered up. In a rage, her divine power burst forth and she once again pushed Yi Qinghan off the bed. Then she quickly took out a robe and put it on. Only then did she angrily curse at Yi Qinghan. "Young lady Zhu Yi, what is the meaning of this? You've clearly fallen for me, but why do you keep attacking me? Are you playing with me? Are you not sincere at all? If you don't want to cooperate, I'll leave now. I don't want the heart of the fire god." However, the anger in Yi Qinghan's eyes burned even brighter. His face was cold and he didn't fear the faint murderous aura in Zhu Yi's body at all. He actually turned around and left. Wait. Zhu Yi was about to deal with the fire god Grand Elder. How could she let Yi Qinghan, her greatest helper, leave? If Yi Qinghan ran to seek refuge with the Grand Elder and then came to deal with her, it would be even more troublesome. The expression on her face immediately changed and she forced a smile. She quickly walked over and grabbed Yi Qinghan's arm. She said coquettishly, "You can also see that Zhu Yi has feelings for you, but Zhu Yi still feels very uncomfortable when I think about how my clansmen were raped. Can you give Zhu Yi a little more time?" Yi Qinghan felt great in his heart, but on the surface he still smiled coldly and didn't answer. However, he still pretended to relax a little. Seeing this, Zhu Yi hurriedly hooked her arms around Yi Qinghan's neck and pressed her body tightly against him, pretending to be a delicate and pitiful woman. Her bright and beautiful eyes were full of affection. She said coquettishly, "Believe Zhu Yi. You are the first man that Zhu Yi has fallen in love with. Will Zhu Yi make love to you after a period of time?" Yi Qinghan looked at this seductive woman and sighed inwardly. If she went to act, she would definitely be at the level of best actress and could charm countless men to death. He pretended to be moved by Zhu Yi, nodded, put his arms around Zhu Yi's waist again and kissed her fiercely. This time Zhu Yi didn't resist. She passionately kissed back with Yi Qinghan. It seemed that she really fell in love with Yi Qinghan. Sure enough, Yi Qinghan's guess was right. When Yi Qinghan couldn't hold back and was about to make a mistake, Zhu Yi smiled shyly and gently pushed Yi Qinghan away. After a series of gentle words, she said that they would start the operation in 10 days. After they eliminated the fire god, she would definitely let Yi Qinghan have a good time. Yi Qinghan pretended to be incomparably regretful and left embarrassedly. When he returned to his courtyard and entered the combat imperial pavilion, he laughed heartily. He laughed so hard that he couldn't even straighten his back. Zhu Yi was an extremely intelligent person who schemed against people every day. She didn't expect to be schemed against by him today. Not only did she lose her composure, but she was also taken advantage of by him. To be able to take advantage of such a devil-like woman made Yi Qinghan very proud. Swish! Yi Qinghan waved his hand and 10 God Slayer spears appeared in the air. They spun around him and shot forward. After that, one of the God Slayer spears suddenly started to spin at an extremely fast speed. It was getting faster and faster until the entire spear turned illusory. The aura at the tip of the spear became even more terrifying. Cracks appeared in the space in front of it. It was extremely strange. Buzz. All the restrictions in the Combat Imperial Pavilion were activated due to the cracks in the space. 7-colored divine radiance shone, causing the space in the main hall to freeze. Luckily, this God Slayer spear only spun for 2 seconds before it collapsed with a flash of white light. It exploded bit by bit and vanished into thin air. The source energy on it turned into sparks that flickered in the air before vanishing as well. After retrieving the remaining 9 God Slayer spears, Yi Qinghan's confidence was boosted. The first God Slayer spear that could spin was almost at the phenomenal stage. It might only be able to spin for 2 seconds. At their level, 2 seconds was enough to determine the life and death of many people. When fighting against an enemy, as long as one God Slayer spear could break through the obstruction of the enemy's spatial power and reach the enemy's side, forcing the enemy to use their source energy to resist, this God Slayer spear would be enough to be fatal. With a wave of his hand, Yi Qinghan took out the God Slayer saber and woke Xiaohe up. He was prepared to share his recent cultivation results with Xiaohe. Xiaohe's eyes were still in a daze. When he saw the space in the Combat Imperial Pavilion being torn apart by the revolving God Slayer spear, he was so shocked that he immediately woke up. After that, the restrictions in the combat Imperial Pavilion flashed again. Xiao He exclaimed in surprise, "Boss, what is this? How did you do it? That revolving God-Slayer spear is so terrifying. I can feel my heart palpitating. This God-Slayer spear can definitely injure me." Yi Qinghan kept the God-Slayer spear and had a stunned expression on his face. Xiao Hei's spirit body was extremely strange. Even an attack from a lower grade 9 martial artist wasn't able to make Xiao Hei's heart palpitate. Could this revolving God-Slayer spear really be so powerful? After explaining to Xiao Hei the theory behind the God-Slayer spear's transformation, Xiao Hei was extremely surprised and delighted. After that, Yi Qinghan asked Xiao Hei why his heart palpitated. However, Xiao Hei couldn't explain it. He only vaguely said that if his life was in danger, his heart would be on alert. For example, the light god that he met in Devil Mountain previously made his heart palpitate. Xiao Hei ignored Yi Qinghan's bewildered expression and said proudly, "However, boss. I, Lord Xiao Hei, am probably going to evolve a second time. After I evolve, your God-Slayer spear will definitely not be able to injure me." "What? You're going to evolve again?" Yi Qinghan's body trembled. After that, he became ecstatic. Xiao Hei grinned and said, "I have a faint feeling that if I devour the energy of a few more grade 9 martial artists, I will be able to evolve again." Good. Good. Yi Qinghan's eyes lit up. His heart was filled with doubts. This God-Slayer spear was indeed a supreme spiritual treasure. Not to mention whether it had any other special abilities, it was already very impressive that it could give birth to a specter that could evolve continuously. Immediately he said proudly, "Grade 9 martial artists are easy. There will be a huge battle in 10 days. At that time I will kill a few of them and let you devour them to your heart's content. Zhu Yi, I hope you won't play any tricks on me. Otherwise, don't blame me if you die." Chapter 1201. During these 10 days, Yi Qinghan did not cultivate. He accompanied Xiao Hei in the War Emperor Palace, chatting, resting, and letting his body and mind relax in preparation for the start of the great battle. 10 days later, as expected, the restriction in the private room was triggered again. Yi Qinghan immediately dashed out and saw that it was Zhu Yi's pretty maid who came to invite him to the meeting hall again. Yi Qinghan did not directly teleport out. The muscles on his body wriggled and he transformed into Zhu Tai's appearance. He swaggered out, touched the pretty maid's face and walked toward the hall with a big smile. When he walked into the hall, 3 war gods of lower 9th grade were already sitting at the side, looking at Zhu Yi with fiery eyes. Zhu Yi sat on the throne looking at Yi Qinghan with a smile. "Master." When the 3 warriors of lower 9th grade saw Yi Qinghan, they obviously received Zhu Yi's instructions and bowed respectfully to him. Yi Qinghan nodded, smiled and looked at Zhu Yi. "Everything has been arranged. This time the fire god will definitely die." Zhu Yi gave Yi Qinghan a definite answer, and then suddenly transmitted a message. "Young Master Yi, can you transform into Zhu Tai's appearance? Also, you can control your breath like him and disguise yourself as a venerable. When the time comes, it will be a surprise." Yi Qinghan nodded and transmitted a message. "That's easy." "Good. Later you will quietly transform and blend into the team of venerables. Follow behind us and listen to my instructions." After Zhu Yi finished giving instructions, she led the 3 warriors of lower 9th grade and directly flew outside. Yi Qinghan quietly transformed into Zhu Tai's appearance. At this time, Zhu Yi's personal maid unexpectedly followed Yi Qinghan and flew outside. Several venerables were already waiting outside. When they saw Zhu Yi flying out of the general's mansion and heading west, they hurriedly followed the team. Yi Qinghan sighed secretly. It was obvious that these venerables were used to cover his death. In a battle between level 9 experts, no matter how many venerables there were, they would all die. However, what Yi Qinghan did not understand was why Zhu Yi would send her personal maidservant to her death as well. For a moment, Yi Qinghan did not know what arrangements Zhu Yi had made for her to dare to fly directly to Fire God Island. Did she have the confidence to face the joint attack of the Patriarch of the Fire God clan and the Grand Elder? However, he was secretly on guard and opened up his spiritual sense. He was prepared to immediately flee if the situation was not right. As expected, they had only moved for a short while when a rank 9 powerhouse flew out from a huge island in the north and teleported straight toward Fire God Island. His speed was much faster than theirs. There were countless experts in the entire Fire God's secret territory flying towards the Fire God's secret territory. It was obvious that they were going to witness the grandest battle in the Fire God's secret territory that would change the power structure of the factions. Zhu did not panic. She flew toward the west with a swagger. Her calm demeanor made countless people very confused. They did not know what Zhu was doing and how she was going to break the joint attack of the Patriarch of the Fire God clan and the Grand Elder. The Grand Elder and 8 lower rank 9 martial artists stood hundreds of thousands of miles to the east of Fire God Island. If Zhu dared to attack Fire God Island, they would immediately launch a pincer attack with the Patriarch of the Fire God clan. Hundreds of thousands of miles seemed very far, but in fact they could travel there in 2 or 3 teleportations. The Fire God was guarding the Fire God Island and did not appear. Yiqinghan used his spiritual sense to explore quietly and found that the space on the island was faintly trembling. It was obvious that there were powerful prohibitions everywhere on the island. Yiqinghan was even more puzzled when he realized this. He did not understand how Zhu could break through the prohibitions of Fire God Island and kill the Fire God under the watchful eyes of the Grand Elder. However, at this moment he was disguised as Zhu Tai the Venerable. He followed Zhu and the others from a distance with the 4 venerables. Even if something happened he would have time to escape. Therefore he did not panic and flew slowly. More than an hour later, everyone entered the sphere of influence of the Fire God clan. The atmosphere began to become extremely oppressive. In the distance the Grand Elder's party also released their aura at the same time. It was an obvious warning. Listen to my command. Prepare to attack. At this moment Zhu voice came. Yiqinghan's heart trembled. This Zhu really dared to attack so openly. Immediately the power of origin revolved around his body. The venerables beside him also had solemn expressions. The power of origin revolved around his body. Yiqinghan observed quietly. Instead he found that Zhu personal maidservant looked relaxed and extremely excited. He did not understand where her confidence came from. Everyone teleport. Our target is above Fire God Island. Suddenly Zhu shouted. Her graceful body and 3 lower rank 9 martial artists suddenly disappeared in front of them. The pretty maidservant also shouted at the 3rd madam of Yiqinghan, teleport. Seeing that Zhu was so confident, Yiqinghan hesitated for a moment before teleporting over. However, his divine sense was wide open, locking onto Fire God Island and the Grand Elder in the distance. Buzz. As soon as Zhu and the other 3 appeared above Fire God Island, the Grand Elder in the distance moved. The Fire God clan patriarch and a lower rank 9 martial artist also moved. By the time Yiqinghan teleported down, the Fire God's body was already rushing toward the island below. The Grand Elder and the other 7 martial artists were already more than 10,000 miles away. One more teleport and they would arrive. It was obvious that the Fire God and the Grand Elder had already secretly communicated with each other. They would attack together and kill Zhu. Yiqinghan's soul strength and space force quietly operated. His mind was at its peak. Once he realized that the situation was not right he would run away first. Buzz. Suddenly, what shocked Yiqinghan the Fire God and the Grand Elder was that Zhu and the other 2 lower rank 9 war gods suddenly exploded with a fierce aura. The blazing aura burned the surrounding space. The 3 of them actually reached the same level as the Fire God and Grand Elder Zhu by relying on their aura. Before the Grand Elder arrived, the Fire God was already scared out of his wits. Halfway through his charge he hurriedly rushed toward the island below. His lower rank 9 subordinate also hurriedly ran away, completely ignoring the matter of joining hands with Big Yuan Bao. It was more important to use the restrictive spell to save their lives. It should be noted that at this moment Yiqinghan had not revealed himself. Yiqinghan attacked together with the Grand Elder quickly. Zhu's eyes suddenly lit up when she saw the Fire God running away. She immediately transmitted her voice to him. The origin energy revolved around her body like a war goddess above the 9th heaven. She flew toward the Grand Elder like a flickering light. Her jade-like hands moved and invisible ripples twisted in the air. A cage formed by the power of space trapped the Grand Elder. At the same time she angrily shouted at the lower rank 9 war gods beside the Grand Elder, "What are you waiting for?" Yiqinghan saw that Zhu and the other lower rank 9 warriors chased after the Fire God with monstrous momentum, but they did not launch any attacks. Then he saw the 3 lower rank 9 warriors beside the Grand Elder suddenly attack their companions. For a moment he roughly guessed Zhu Yi's plan. Zhu Li and the other 2 obviously cultivated some secret technique to make their momentum look like upper rank 9 warriors. In addition, he did not show himself, which was enough to scare away the fire god patriarch. And Zhu Yi used some unknown method to lure the 3 lower rank 9 warriors from the Grand Elder's side to join her side. The fire god escaped, the Grand Elder's 3 subordinates betrayed him, and Zhu Yi and Yi Qinghan joined hands. Without the heart of the fire god, the Grand Elder would definitely die. Zhu Yi set up a huge trap. Her target was not the fire god patriarch but the Grand Elder. If the Grand Elder died, would the fire god patriarch still be alive? This woman was so vicious. She was indeed a bamboo leaf snake. Buzz. Suddenly, the maidservant beside Yi Qinghan surged with energy and shot toward the Grand Elder's side. It was another lower rank 9 warrior. Yi Qinghan no longer had any misgivings. A strange light flashed in his eyes as he locked on to the first senior statesman. He activated the Soul Exterminator. At the same time, the 10 God Slayer spears whistled through the air, heading straight for the first senior statesman. The God Slayer saber suddenly appeared in his hand. He was ready to let Xiao He devour all the lower rank 9 warriors on the Grand Elder's side. Chapter 1202. Zhu Yi, you be *ki. How dare you scheme against me? Zhu Shueishu al f *cku. Grand Elder was tall and strong. He had a long brown beard and a hooked nose. His eyes were filled with rage and urgency. He saw Zhu Shueishu, the Fire God clan leader, flee into Fire God Island in fear of Zhu Li and the other 2, not daring to come out again. He saw 3 of his subordinates betray him. The other party suddenly had a lower rank 9 martial artist who was entangled with his 5 lower rank 9 martial artists. Most importantly, Yi Qinghan disguised himself as a venerable and suddenly attacked. How could he not know Zhu Yi's scheme? Zhu Yi's scheme was to kill him. Zhu Yi's attack method was very strange. She could use spatial power to form a cage and temporarily imprison the enemy in the air. Not only could this move trap the enemy, but it could also repel the enemy. At the same time, Zhu Yi had a strange soul skill that attacked with spatial power. If one was not careful, one would be tricked by her. Hence, Grand Elder would rather face Zhu Shueishu, the Fire God clan leader, than this troublesome woman. As expected, in the next second Zhu Yi's soul skill arrived. A gust of cold wind blew, almost freezing Grand Elder's body and soul. However, what terrified Grand Elder even more was that at this moment, countless golden soul threads suddenly emerged from his head and swarmed toward his almost frozen soul ocean. Yi Qinghan's soul skill came at the right time. It was even more turbulent than Zhu Yi's. Good chance. Zhu Yi and Yi Qinghan looked at each other. Their eyes lit up at the same time. They crazily used their strongest attacks. Zhu Yi waved her hands in front of her, and a powerful spatial energy surged towards the trapped Grand Elder like a tide. Her attack method was very strange. The spatial power turned into tides, each wave more turbulent than the last. When it reached Grand Elder's side, all the waves overlapped and their power shook the sky. The expressions of the 2 lower rank 9 martial artists who were fighting nearby changed, and they hurriedly retreated. Yi Qinghan's 10 God Slayer spears followed closely behind. He did not let any of them rotate. This was his life-saving trump card. Now that the 2 of them were working together, there was a high chance that they could kill the Grand Elder. Of course, he would not reveal it. Following the God Slayer spear, his body shot forward. The Grand Doyen was holding a pseudo-chaos divine crystal. He had to snatch it first. The Grand Elder was indeed an expert at the peak of level 9. It only took him a second to eliminate Zhu Yi's and Yi Qinghan's soul attacks. But at that moment Zhu Yi's attack arrived. A tidal wave of spatial power surged towards the Grand Elder's head. The Grand Elder was scared out of his wits. Zhu Yi's attack was the most terrifying. That spatial trapping and soul skill didn't cause much damage to him, only causing him some trouble. However, these 1,000-layer waves were stronger than the previous one. Last time he was severely injured by these 1,000-layer waves. The first Grand Elder immediately circulated his space energy to defend himself. Under the first Grand Elder's control, the space energy formed a huge fire disk that spun in front of him. The scorching hot aura and powerful pressure were so oppressive that even the low-level martial artists who were secretly observing from afar could feel the incomparably oppressive aura. Boom! The 1,000-layer waves and the spinning fire disk collided, causing a deafening explosion. The powerful energy collided, causing cracks to appear in the space. The surging shockwaves surged in all directions. The visible spatial ripples turned into ripples and radiated in all directions. Boom! 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 The 1,000-layer waves smashed into the fire disk one after another. It was like the endless waves of the sea hitting the rocks at the edge of the cliff. The shock waves turned into layers of ripples and continued to spread. The nearby spatial cracks were like sparks formed by lightning in the dark night. It was ferocious and terrifying. The terrifying aura spread in all directions. The restriction of the fire god island below was activated, and a dazzling red light lit up. A fiery red shield enveloped the fire god island's dragon boat. The low-level martial artists and residents on the nearby islands couldn't withstand such a powerful pressure. They prostrated on the ground and didn't dare to move. They couldn't even breathe. Grand Elder, go to hell. Yi Qinghan activated his origin energy shield and shot forward. He wasn't afraid of this level of impact at all. His spiritual sense locked onto the fire disk in front of him. After Zhu Yi's 1,000-layer waves attacked the fire disk, although it barely managed to protect it and didn't shatter, it was on the verge of collapse. At this moment, Yi Qinghan's God Slayer spear arrived. Could he still condense a fire disk in such a short time? Chi, the first God Slayer spear arrived. As it flew at high speed, its penetrating power was terrifying. It pierced through the fire disk in an instant. Then the God Slayer spear and the fire disk exploded. The remaining 9 God Slayer spears pierced towards the Grand Elder, whose eyes were filled with fear and despair. Buzz! Under the stimulation of death, the Grand Elder erupted with unprecedented potential. He twisted his hands and spat out a mouthful of blood. He barely condensed a fire disk that wasn't much bigger than his body. His body started to retreat rapidly, and the God Slayer spear followed closely behind. The scene in the battlefield looked like the Grand Elder was holding a shield and retreating rapidly. 9 sharp arrows shot over at lightning speed. No matter how fast he retreated, how could he be faster than the God Slayer spear? Bang! The second and third God Slayer's spear shot over and collided with the small fire plate. The small fire plate instantly exploded, and the first Doyan's hands also exploded bit by bit, turning into minced meat and a bloody mist. No! The Grand Elder vomited a mouthful of blood as he screamed in fear and flew back. However, the 7 God Slayer spears shot over at the same time. Just 4 spears were enough to shatter the Grand Elder's body. When the last 3 spears hit him, his head was completely smashed into minced meat. His soul spirit sea was shattered, and the Grand Elder's body floated weakly in the air. A divine crystal floated out, and his interspatial ring also automatically left his body. The source energy on the surface of his body also dissipated in the air. Xiaohei, swallow this body. There is still a large amount of life essence energy inside. Yi Qinghan made a grabbing motion, and the Grand Elder's divine crystal immediately kept. With a wave of the Slaughter God saber, Xiaohei flew out and covered the Grand Elder's body. Then it instantly flew back into the Slaughter God saber. Xiaohei swallowed the Grand Elder's body very quickly. Outsiders might think that the transcendent grade divine artifact spirit had smashed the Grand Elder's body. Although it seemed like it took a long time from the moment the Fire God Patriarch escaped to the moment the Grand Elder died, only a few seconds had passed. The Grand Elder's 5 lower grade 9 experts, the 3 traders and Zhu Yi's personal maidservant had only fought for 1 round, but the Grand Elder had already been killed by Zhu Yi and Yi Qinghan. The martial artists who were watching from afar, as well as the residents on the countless islands below, did not even see the battle clearly before they realized that the Grand Elder had disappeared. If it wasn't for the Grand Elder's blood still falling from the sky, and if it wasn't for the Grand Elder's divine crystal disappearing in a flash, no one would have known that the Grand Elder was already dead. Zhu Yi smiled. Her smile was like a blooming flower, overflowing with 100 charms. Her beauty was incomparable. Zhu Yi's maidservant smiled as well. She looked at Zhu Yi with a pair of beautiful eyes that were filled with excitement and ecstasy. Zhu Li and the other 2 also stopped moving. The aura on their bodies gradually dissipated. They could not even maintain the aura of a lower grade 9 expert. Their faces were pale, but their eyes were filled with smiles. The 3 lower grade 9 martial artists who had defected also heaved a sigh of relief. If Zhu Yi lost this battle, they would all die. The outcome was already decided. Once the Grand Elder died, Great General Lord Zhu Yi was destined to unify the Fire God mystic realm and become the supreme ruler of the Fire God tribe. Countless martial artists who were observing the situation in the surroundings had a change in expression. They all knew that the power structure of the Fire God mystic realm had changed. All the martial artists in the Fire God mystic realm would have to submit to Zhu Yi. Chapter 1203. You still don't want to surrender? Zhu Yi giggled and looked at the 5 Grand Doyen's subordinates coldly. The unique temperament of a queen made her look even more noble and elegant. Not surrendering? Then die. The 5 war gods under the Grand Doyen hesitated for a moment, but Yi Qinghan sneered and shouted angrily. A strange light flashed in his eyes, and the God Slayer spear whizzed out again. It split into 5 groups and charged at the 5 people. At the same time he waved the God Slayer saber and transmitted a message. Xiaohei, nourishing food is here. Devour them. Yi Qinghan, don't kill them. Zhu Yi saw that Yi Qinghan suddenly attacked and her expression changed. She transmitted a message to him. It was true that she wanted to unify the Fire God mystic realm, and it was also true that he wanted to kill the Grand Doyen and the Fire God tribe patriarch. However, she didn't want to kill all the 9th grade experts in the Fire God mystic realm. Previously, the 5 subordinates of the Fire God were killed by Yi Qinghan, and that couldn't be helped. Now that the outcome was set, how could she let Yi Qinghan kill indiscriminately? If it was in the past, Yi Qinghan definitely wouldn't kill indiscriminately. However, now that Xiaohei might evolve, Yi Qinghan couldn't care less. He pretended not to hear Zhu Yi's transmitted message and immediately released the soul illusion. 10 God Slayer spears formed groups of 2 and stabbed at the 5 people. The 5 people were all 9th grade martial artists. Because the Grand Doyen died, they were distracted and fell into the soul illusion. Those who originally wanted to run away and submit to him panicked at this moment. They hurriedly released their spatial force and launched all kinds of attacks to protect themselves. The 4 people who were prepared to fight with the 5 people retreated in a hurry when they saw Yi Qinghan's God Slayer spear shooting at them. 10 God Slayer spears were so powerful, and with the help of the soul illusion, how could the 5 people deal with them? The first spear smashed the 5 people's attacks. The second spear hit the 5 people's origin energy, and they were all severely injured. Their bones were shattered and their soul sea almost collapsed. Xiaohei. Yi Qinghan bellowed angrily. At the same time he activated the soul destroyer and attacked the 5 people at lightning speed. Xiaohei turned into a gust of wind and swept toward the 5 people. The 5 soul seas were already on the verge of collapsing, and as soon as the golden soul threads attacked them, they immediately collapsed. They could no longer control their source energy. Coincidentally, the gust of wind that Xiaohei had transformed into completely engulfed the 5 of them. In an instant, the 5 of them turned into dust. Not even their divinity crystals were left behind as they completely disappeared from the world. Zhu Yi's personal maidservant and the 3 lower rank 9 martial artists who had defected looked at Yi Qinghan in terror. This man was definitely a murderous demon. He was an expert below the 9th rank of the 5th rank, yet he was easily killed by him. The maid's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Zhu Yi's face was also ashen. She stared at Yi Qinghan with a burning gaze. No one knew what she was thinking. I'm sorry, Miss Zhu Yi. Your telepathic message came too late. As long as I don't launch my attack, once I launch it there will definitely be blood. Yi Qinghan withdrew Xiaohei, turned around and smiled apologetically. His faint smile sent chills down everyone's spine. Your Majesty, this man is too terrifying. He has too many tricks up his sleeves. That just now was definitely not a weapon soul. That monster has a terrifying devouring ability. Why don't we join forces and kill him now? The maid beside Zhu Yi was secretly shocked. She glanced at Zhu Yi and quietly transmitted her voice. In fact, Zhu Yi's heart was also surging with murderous intent. Yi Qinghan had taken advantage of her time and time again. Now he was completely ignoring her orders and wantonly slaughtering rank 9 martial artists. One had to know that it was extremely difficult to break through to rank 9 powerhouses. Every one of them was a valuable asset to the Fire God clan. In the past it was not a pity to kill them because of their hostility. Now they were equivalent to Zhu Yi's subordinates. Of course her heart ached. However, when Zhu Yi saw the fiery red shield on the fire god island below, she secretly suppressed the murderous intent in her heart. As long as the fire god was not dead, it was not the time to break off relations with Yi Qinghan. Moreover, if she fell out with Yi Qinghan at this moment, she might give the fire god a sneak attack. In that case, the loss outweighed the gain. I'll let it go this time. Next time, don't kill indiscriminately, okay? No matter what, these people are Zhu Yi's clansmen. Since they are ready to surrender, we should give them a chance. Zhu Yi seemed to be smiling and angry at the same time. She rolled her eyes at Yi Qinghan with some reproach, looking like a lover flirting with each other. Well, I'll keep it in mind. Thank you, Your Majesty. Yi Qinghan said respectfully, giving Zhu Yi enough face. However, he was sneering in his heart. These are your clansmen, not my clansmen. I won't feel bad killing them. Hehe. In fact, Yi Qinghan also wanted to test Zhu Yi's mind. He was very satisfied with the result. As long as the fire god was not dead, Zhu Yi would not attack him. However, once the fire god was dead, Zhu Yi would definitely attack immediately. Miss Zhu Yi, what should we do next? Can a direct attack break the protective shield of the island? Yi Qinghan looked at the island below with burning eyes. He thought that he could immediately attack the island with Zhu Yi, kill the patriarch of the fire god clan, and obtain the heart of the fire god. Then he could immediately escape and see his long-lost relatives. His heart was filled with excitement. Child Yi, your thinking is too simple. Zhu Yi sighed and transmitted her voice. This fire god island is the rear base left by the fire god clan. The restrictive shield of the fire god island was set up by a 9th grade supreme martial artist who was proficient in restrictive spells. Only a 9th grade supreme martial artist can break it. If the two of us attack continuously, it will take 100,000 years and we can't stop. What? Yi Qinghan looked at the protective shield of the island below in disbelief. Attack continuously for tens of thousands of years? How strong was this protective shield exactly? Moreover, would the patriarch of the fire god clan let the two of them attack continuously? If the two of them exhausted themselves and the patriarch of the fire god clan suddenly attacked, wouldn't all their previous efforts be wasted? The first thought that came to Yi Qinghan's mind was that Zhu Yi was messing with him. Immediately, the 10 God Slayer spears whizzed out and stabbed downward. He didn't believe that there would be such a powerful restrictive shield in this world. After the God Slayer spears were unleashed, Yi Qinghan didn't look at them. Instead, his divine sense quietly locked onto Zhu Yi and the experts around her, afraid that Zhu Yi would suddenly attack him. Boom! The 10 God Slayer spears pierced down with a sharp aura. However, when they collided with the fiery red protective shield, there wasn't the big explosion that Yi Qinghan imagined. Instead, it was like an iron rod smashing into a quagmire. It was silent. Not even a trace of energy was emitted. It disappeared just like that, as if it had penetrated the shield. Yi Qinghan's face turned slightly pale. Only he knew that the God Slayer spears didn't penetrate the shield. Instead, they were dissolved by the inexplicable energy inside the protective shield. This protective shield actually had dozens of layers. The God Slayer spears penetrated more than 10 layers before collapsing. Zhu Yi didn't move. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly, as if she was very happy to see Yi Qinghan suffer. Yi Qinghan also believed Zhu Yi's words. The restrictive shield of the island below was indeed powerful. Even if he, Zhu Yi, and all the other 9th grade martial artists attacked together, it was almost impossible to break it. As long as the fire god stayed inside and didn't come out, it was almost impossible to kill him. For a moment, Yi Qinghan felt a little dull. Since he couldn't kill the fire god and obtain the fire god's heart, what was the point of staying here? It seemed that he had been tricked by Zhu Yi in the end. Chapter 1204. Don't worry, Child Yi. We can definitely kill the patriarch of the fire god clan. Give Zhu Yi some time and she will definitely be able to break this restrictive spell. Zhu Yi saw the sadness in Yi Qinghan's eyes and immediately sent a telepathic message over. Yi Qinghan said coldly, "Do you have any way to break it?" Zhu Yi smiled mysteriously and said, "Hehe, no matter how strong a fortress is, it will be broken from the inside. Don't worry, Child Yi. You will know after a while." Yi Qinghan looked down in confusion. Of course, at the same time he was secretly on guard against Zhu Yi's sneak attack. After a long time, Zhu Yi did not move, but the shield below moved. The huge shield trembled slightly and then calmed down again. Yi Qinghan and the group of people were baffled, but the eyes of Zhu Yi and her personal maid lit up, as if their scheme had succeeded. Zhu Yi smiled tenderly. All right, you really didn't disappoint me. The energy gathering array has been destroyed, and this powerful restriction can only last for 3,000 years at most. After 3,000 years, it will be the day of Zhu Xue's death. Yi Qinghan's body shook and he used his divine sense to check. Sure enough, originally the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was constantly rushing toward the shield. Now there was no more spiritual energy being absorbed by the shield. He was overjoyed. He immediately sent a message to Zhu Yi. Why wait for 3,000 years? Let's see how long this shield can last with so many people attacking it with all our strength. He told Yi, you are still too anxious. Although this shield has no energy supply, it is still very difficult to break it with the energy it has stored. Most importantly, there is a killing array inside the shield. If you attack it by force and trigger the killing array, even a normal 9th grade supreme martial artist will die. Zhu Yi smiled sweetly. Her charming look made Yi Qinghan and the people around him feel their hearts flutter. Then she said, let's go back and rest and cultivate. After 3,000 years, Zhu Xue will definitely die. I will give you the heart of the fire god. After that, Zhu Yi ignored Yi Qinghan. Instead, he turned to the 3 subordinates behind him and said, Zhu Li, bring some men and take over all the islands. Kill those who don't submit. Zhu Li and the other 2 immediately agreed. They teleported toward the eastern islands with faces full of excitement. When they returned, they were ready to start conquering all the islands. Once the Grand Elder died, the fire god Tortoise could not come out. The most important thing was that the rank 5 and rank 9 subordinates under the Grand Elder were all killed by Yi Qinghan. At this moment, unifying the fire god arcane realm was not difficult at all. Yi Qinghan followed Zhu Yi and teleported toward the Flame King Island. Together with him were his personal maid and the 3 lower 9th grade war gods who betrayed the Great Elder. Back at the Great General's palace, Yi Qinghan returned to his private room alone. He quietly waited for Zhu Yi to settle her matters and come find him. His guess was right. After half a day, Zhu Yi arrived. Yi Qinghan secretly thought that if Zhu Yi wanted to ask him for the divine crystal of the Grand Elder, he would not give it to her even if he had to fall out with her. Moreover, the fire god was not dead. He did not believe that Zhu Yi would fall out with him. To his surprise, Zhu Yi did not mention anything about the pseudo-chaotic divine crystal. Instead, she said a bunch of polite words to win him over. Her tone could not be more pleasant. The content of the conversation was nothing more than thanking him for his help, continuing to work hard in the future and getting rid of the fire god together. You get the heart of the fire god, I get the fire god arcane realm, good for you, good for me, good for everyone. Yi Qinghan was not willing to be fooled by her. When he killed the 5 subordinates of the Grand Elder, although the murderous intent in Zhu Yi's eyes was deeply hidden, his soul strength was so abnormally strong. How could he not have detected it? At that moment, Yi Qinghan made up his mind and hugged Zhu Yi's delicate body domineeringly. He smiled wickedly and said, Miss Zhu Yi, now that the Grand Elder is dead, the fire god's arcane realm is destined to be under your skirt. I wonder, do I have the chance to be under your skirt too? Although Zhu Yi was furious, she did not dare to show it. She grabbed onto Yi Qinghan's hand that was moving up and rolled her eyes at him. Mr. Yi, why are you so lustful? Don't you know that this will make Zhu Yi look down on you? Hehe. The smile at the corner of Yi Qinghan's mouth became even more devilish. The 2 of them had their own ulterior motives, yet they pretended to be harmonious on the surface. They even had to pretend to be lovers, which made him feel very excited. Zhu Yi wanted to tear him into pieces in her heart, but she looked very affectionate on the surface. This made Yi Qinghan want to play with her even more. Immediately, he pulled his hand out domineeringly and grabbed Zhu Yi's proud breasts. He used all his strength to knead them, taking advantage of them. His mouth moved closer and blew into her ear. He said ambiguously, if I can get Miss, don't talk about Miss looking down on me. Even if Miss kills me, I will be willing. I think about Miss day and night. I can't sleep or cultivate. Zhu Yi was furious and was about to use her murderous intent. However, she felt that Yi Qinghan's divine sense had locked onto her soul. She quickly suppressed it and pretended to twist her body. She shouted, Mr. Yi, please conduct yourself with dignity. Give Zhu Yi a little more time, okay? I can give you time, but how much longer? Miss, you have to give me a deadline, right? Otherwise I will be possessed by the devil. Yi Qinghan pretended to be very sincere, as if he had fallen in love with Zhu Yi or desired her body. However, he didn't let go. Instead, he turned Zhu Yi around and kissed her lips. His big hands moved up and down, no different from an impatient pervert. When Zhu Yi saw that Yi Qinghan's tone was relaxed, as if he was willing to wait for her, she was slightly relieved. However, she was suddenly violated again. This time it wasn't just her mouth and breasts. Yi Qinghan's mysterious area was also wantonly played with. Zhu Yi felt a strange excitement when a few sensitive parts of her body were played with. Yi Qinghan's strong manly scent made her mind go blank. After a while, Zhu Yi felt a chill on her upper body. She was shocked and completely woke up. She pushed Yi Qinghan away and retreated a few steps in a flash. She hurriedly tidied up her clothes. When she saw Yi Qinghan's burning gaze, she subconsciously lowered her head. She realized that she was actually a little afraid to see Yi Qinghan. She had always liked to play with men in the palm of her hand. However, when she was facing Yi Qinghan, she was at a disadvantage. She was being played with in the palm of his hand. She didn't know what went wrong. She didn't understand why Yi Qinghan wasn't afraid of her at all. Moreover, he dared to desecrate her in such a domineering manner. Wasn't he afraid that he wouldn't be able to get the heart of the fire god in the future? Or should she kill him in a fit of anger? Young Master Yi is too rude to me. I'm ignoring you. Seeing Yi Qinghan rubbing his hands and sniffing his nose in an intoxicated manner, then slowly walking towards Zhu Yi with a fiery gaze, as if he wanted to force himself on her, Zhu Yi was so frightened that she hurriedly teleported away. If you want to play tricks with me, you're still not my match. Yi Qinghan laughed and chuckled. Zhu Yi couldn't figure out his trump card, but he had figured out Zhu Yi's tricks. He would definitely not lose 100 battles. Chapter 1205. After confirming that Zhu Yi would not bother him during this period of time, Yi Qinghan sat down quietly. His divine sense began to scan the entire fire god's mystic realm. Once the Grand Elder died, Zhu Yi's subordinates led a group of venerables to sweep through the entire fire god's mystic realm. With several 9th-grade war gods leading the team and a group of venerables, who would dare to resist? Within a few days, Zhu Li and his men swept through the entire fire god's mystic realm. Hundreds of thousands of islands had declared their allegiance to Zhu Yi. Only the fire god island stood alone in the west, its protective shield shining with red light. Zhu Yi said that the protective shield can only be broken after 3,000 years? Could it be some kind of trick? 3,000 years is enough to arrange many things. Could it be that she wants to get rid of me and the fire god tribe's patriarch? Yi Qinghan pondered silently. He still suspected that Zhu Yi was wrong when she said 3,000 years, but he did not dare to attack the protective shield. Without Zhu Yi's help he could not break it alone. Furthermore, if there was really a killing array, his life would be over. He guessed that Zhu Yi definitely had some kind of arrangement, but he did not dare to probe her unscrupulously. Now he could only continue to cultivate and increase his strength. He wanted the 10 God Slayer spears to be able to revolve. If he could make a breakthrough in the spatial combination and comprehend the Tao, he would become a venerable. That would be perfect. Ignoring Zhu Yi, Yi Qinghan entered the War Emperor Palace. He summoned the Slaughter God Blade and found that Xiao He had already fallen into a deep sleep. Yi Qinghan was delighted. Xiao He had devoured so many 9th-grade experts. If he could really evolve, that would be great. At this moment, Blackie could easily swallow a lower rank 9 martial artist. If it could fight an upper rank 9 martial artist head-on after its evolution, that would be awesome. In 3,000 years, Yi Qinghan believed that he would definitely be able to turn all 10 God Slayer's spears. By then, with the evolved Xiao He, even if Zhu Yi had any tricks up her sleeves, he could use his powerful strength to kill her. At that moment, Yi Qinghan was energized. He waved his hand and 2 God Slayer spears appeared in the air. He started cultivating with all his might. Your Majesty, is there really a killing array in Fire God Island's barrier? Within Zhu Yi's pavilion, her personal maidservant asked suspiciously. Zhu Yi had not told her about this before. Of course not. This king was lying to that bastard. Zhu Yi sneered again and again. When she recalled how Yi Qinghan played with her body just now, her expression became unnatural again. The pretty maid was even more puzzled as she asked, "Then why didn't we attack together earlier and break through Fire God Island? Wouldn't that solve all problems once and for all? There are so many of us. If we work together to kill Yi Qinghan, he definitely won't be our match. Do you think he can fly away? First of all, this shield is indeed very difficult to break. Don't forget about Zhu Xian. If he counterattacks before his death, Yi Qinghan and I may be fine, but you guys will be in trouble. Zhu Yi sighed helplessly. She leaned on the pretty maid with a tired expression and said faintly, "Most importantly, I still can't see through Yi Qinghan. I think he is still hiding his strength or some other killer move. I wanted to test him just now, but I didn't expect him to take advantage of me. This is really infuriating. After 3,000 years, Zhu Xian will completely lose his sharpness. At that time we can easily kill him. Furthermore, I need to use 3,000 years to set up the formation properly. At that time we can kill Yi Qinghan as well. This king is determined to get the fire god armor. If I don't turn Yi Qinghan's bones into ashes, I won't be able to endure this anger. I want to cripple him and torture him to death." The pretty maid's eyes were filled with hatred and murderous intent. She hugged Zhu Yi and her face turned gentle again. She said softly, "Your Majesty, rest assured. Zhu Li and the other two's joint attack formation will be completed after 3,000 years. At that time, when the three of them work together, they will definitely have the strength of upper 9th grade. If we join hands and ambush him, Yi Qinghan will die for sure. I will help you vent your anger. Your Majesty, don't think about these annoying things. Let me serve you well." Zhu Yi moaned. Her lust had been aroused by Yi Qinghan and now her beloved concubine was teasing her. She felt her entire body heating up. The two of them fell on the jade bed and started to have sex with each other. For the time being, the room was filled with the fragrance of spring, which they didn't want to share with anyone else. In the endless void outside the fire god's secret domain, a 9-story pagoda was slowly flying around the fire god's secret domain. It had been more than 100 years. On the 9th floor of the Soul Emperor Pavilion, people were sitting in a room. Yi Qingyu and Yi Qinggu were sitting in the main hall, with Night Emperor's group of 4 sitting next to them. All of them wore a faint worried countenance. Although they were talking about the strange things happening in different places, the atmosphere was a little heavy. Lord Devour was still cultivating in seclusion, but Mo Xiaoxiao was still in the small hall, looking at the endless void and cultivating. There was a green jade talisman in the middle of the hall, which was Yi Qinghan's soul jade slip. Once Yi Qinghan died, this jade slip would explode. It had been more than 100 years. Theoretically, if Yi Qinghan could get the fire god's heart, he would have gotten it long ago. If he couldn't get it, it meant that there was a super expert in the fire god's secret domain. Either Yi Qinghan didn't dare to move, or Yi Qinghan was trapped or captured. No matter what the result was, people were so worried. As Yi Qinghan didn't come out, they had to wait outside the fire god's secret domain. If Yi Qinghan came out, they couldn't return to the reincarnation secret domain. Although Lord Devour was strong, he wasn't much stronger than Yi Qinghan. If Yi Qinghan couldn't handle it, even if she brought this group of people in, it would be suicide. The atmosphere here was oppressive. In contrast, the divine world was full of peace. More than 10 years ago, Xianxia came out of seclusion, and what accompanied him was a divine decree. The contents of the divine decree were made public in the divine world, and the divine world was in an uproar. The divine decree stated that Xianxia was the lord of the divine world. Perhaps ordinary warriors didn't know what the divine decree represented, but those who reached the venerable level understood a little. The divine decree was automatically sent down by heaven and earth. Some said it represented the will of heaven and earth, some said it represented the will of the Supreme God Emperor, and some said it represented the will of the Supreme Realm. But the level 9 experts all knew that the divine decree represented the will of the Supreme God Emperor. The experts of the Divine Emperor Supreme Realm had never seen it, but many sovereigns knew that the Supreme God Emperor existed. No one knew how strong the Supreme God Emperor was, but no one could resist the will of the Supreme God Emperor. For example, in the Planar War, once the divine decree was sent down, one had to participate or else the god punishment would come. There was only one type of god punishment, and that was the destruction of the world. The most important thing was that Xianxia became the lord of the divine world. He was definitely bestowed with will, which meant that he could control more space power. Originally, the space power that Xianxia could control was already as big as the star ocean. Now, Qing Shan and Ice Queen estimated that he could control half of the divine world's space power. And the space power that Qing Shan and Ice Queen could control was only as much as the Misty Continent. Xianxia's strength had definitely reached the peak of level 9 Supreme Realm. And he was comparable to the strongest level 9 Supreme Realm experts in the ancient times, like the first chief of Fire God, Zhurong. The second day after the divine decree was made public, Qing Shan brought the Blood Knight Monarch to Supreme Island. After seeing Xianxia and feeling his aura, he completely submitted. Then Ice Queen brought the Wind Moon Monarch and rushed over, showing that they were willing to submit. Monarch Yanran Emo Shanghuang, and the others had no choice but to rush to Supreme Island. The divine world was officially unified by Xianxia. Under his orders, no one dared to go against him. After Xianxia came out of seclusion, he gave out his first order. The entire divine world became busy. Find the place where Shidiao Wu and Yi Qinghan are hiding. Find them at all costs. The order was within everyone's expectations. Shidiao Wu and Yi Qinghan had always been a thorn in Xianxia's throat. After Xianxia's strength increased, the first thing he did was to remove this thorn. The Wind Moon Monarch was the other supreme artifact refiner in the divine world. Xianxia gave her a death order to create a god artifact that could travel through space like the Soul Emperor Pavilion. At the same time, the entire divine world was filled with countless spies, trying their best to find out where Yi Qinghan and Lord Shi were hiding. The trillions of martial artists in the divine world felt Xianxia's rage. A storm was brewing. Chapter 1206. Inside the War Emperor Palace. A green figure was quietly sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. He had a leisurely expression on his face. 6 silver spears that emitted a suffocating aura were flying rapidly in the air beside him. Their speed was extremely fast, like a loach in the mud, incomparably nimble. All of a sudden, the 6 spears spun rapidly at the same time like 6 huge whirlpools on the surface of the sea. As the God Slayer spears spun, 6 cracks were torn in the air. It was like the dark night had been torn apart by lightning. It was a shocking sight. At the same time, the restrictions in the War Emperor Palace lit up. The restrictions emitted a suppressive aura that seemed to freeze the entire space in the hall. The 6 spears spun for exactly the same amount of time, only 3 seconds. Then they collapsed at the same time. The space returned to normal, the cracks disappeared, and the restrictions in the hall disappeared. The oppressive aura in the hall disappeared and peace was restored. Yi Qinghan opened his eyes tiredly. Controlling the 6 spears spun at the same time had exhausted his mental strength. However, he was very excited that he managed to make the 6 spears spin perfectly. He grinned and fell asleep on the ground. 1,000 years had passed. Zhu Yi never came to find him again. He seemed to have forgotten that he was still in the Fire God Mystery Realm. In the past 1,000 years he didn't cultivate laws and focused on increasing the power of the God Slayer spears. He was very clear that even if he comprehended the spatial combination, or if he went one step further and comprehended the Tao, even if he broke through to the Supremacy Realm, his strength wouldn't increase too much. However, the God Slayer spears were different. As long as he could control the 10 spears to spin at the same time, he believed that even if he couldn't defeat Zhu Yi, he would still have the strength to fight her. As long as he could stall Zhu Yi for a while, he could leave the endless void. He had his greatest trump card. Zhu Yi thought that he couldn't open the teleportation formation without her, so she thought that he was a monkey that couldn't jump out of her palm. Zhu Yi didn't stop Yi Qinghan from obtaining the Grand Doyan's pseudo-chaos divine crystal, nor did she ask for it. Therefore, Yi Qinghan reckoned that even if he took the fire god's heart first, Zhu Yi wouldn't stop him. Instead, they would secretly prepare to kill him. Hence, Yi Qinghan cultivated in the War Imperial Palace with peace of mind, waiting for the great battle that would take place 3,000 years later. After sleeping for 3 days and 3 nights in the main hall, Yi Qinghan woke up feeling refreshed. After continuously cultivating for 1,000 years, although with his current strength, there was no difference between cultivating in seclusion for 1,000 or 10,000 years. Cultivating the God Slayer spear was extremely taxing on his mental energy. It still made him extremely tired. Lying on the ground with his eyes half open, Yi Qinghan rested for a moment. Only then did he sit cross-legged and begin his routine examination of his physical condition. In the end, 1,000 years had passed and the soul space had once again undergone a significant change. His soul space has already expanded to millions of miles. It was almost the size of a small plane. This rate of growth was too terrifying. The amount of origin energy he had increased by dozens of times. It was likely that he wouldn't be able to use it all in his lifetime. That's not right. Yiqing muttered. Suddenly his eyes opened abruptly. Then he immediately closed his eyes and looked inside himself. After a moment, when he opened his eyes again, his face was filled with bewilderment. My soul space is still growing, but why has my soul C stopped growing? If my soul C is not growing, isn't it the same as before? Under the lightning's tempering it will slowly shrink? How strange. What's going on with this soul space? Right now Yiqing soul space was like an egg. The soul C inside was like an egg yolk that floated in the soul space. Originally, when the egg was continuously growing, the egg yolk also followed suit. Right now the egg was continuously growing, but the egg yolk had stopped growing. Furthermore, under the continuous tempering of the lightning, it had started to shrink. Yiqing was confused. In the past he had imagined that his soul space might evolve into a plane. The soul sea was the plane's continent. The soul space surrounded by the origin energy was the plane's space. Right now this plane space was continuously growing, but the continent was continuously shrinking. This, no matter how he looked at it, it did not look like a plane at all. I am a monster. Change, and it'll be best if I explode in the end. Yiqing gloomily withdrew his divine sense. It was useless to care about it, so he might as well ignore it. This soul space had always been like a ticking time bomb, causing him to constantly tremble as if he was walking on thin ice. He always had a sense of crisis, afraid that he would accidentally die. Therefore he cherished every moment he had with his loved ones. Therefore he liked to live a comfortable and peaceful life. It was just that Xiao Hei's current appearance was the greatest guilt he had ever felt in his life. If he could not help Xiao Hei reconstruct his true body, he would not be able to live in peace for the rest of his life. That was why he was working so hard. He hoped that he could finish everything before this time bomb exploded in his mind, so that he would not have any regrets in this trip to the other world. Forget it, I have wine today, I will drink today, I will worry tomorrow. I will think about it after I explode. Now I should properly deal with Zhu Yi's bamboo leaf grass. Yiqing decided that there were still 2,000 years left. In the future he would not look into his soul and focus on cultivating. He did not care what the soul space would evolve into or whether it would explode. Otherwise, his heart would be in a mess and he would not be able to cultivate. Not to mention anything else, he would not be able to get past Zhu Yi 3,000 years later. Immediately, he threw away all his thoughts and immersed himself in cultivation. In the hall, the God Slayer spear began to dance again. Fire God Mystic Realm. As expected, the protective shield of Fire God Island was constantly weakening. The light on it was much dimmer than 1,000 years ago. Fire God had been entrenched, but the martial artists on Fire God Island were all anxious and restless. Zhu Yi became the supreme ruler of Fire God Mystic Realm. Thousands of islands submitted to her and there were no more wars. No one dared to oppose her directly. Although some martial artists from the Great General King's faction started to bully the martial artists from the other two factions. But under Zhu Yi's strict ban, a few troublemakers were killed and no one dared to cause trouble anymore. On the surface, Fire God Island became peaceful and harmonious. Recently Zhu Yi rarely appeared in public. However, the people on Fire King Island had started to migrate. Clearly, Fire King Island would become Zhu Yi's sole residence in the future, and it would become the sacred land of Fire God Mystic Realm. In the Great General King's residence in the backyard garden, the scenery was beautiful. Zhu Yi was lazily lying on a recliner, enjoying the warm sunlight and the gentle breeze. She was very satisfied and her eyes were half closed. Her thin clothes were sticking to her voluptuous body, and it was tempting to commit a crime. Buzz. There was a fluctuation in the space and that pretty servant teleported over. She twisted her waist and half knelt beside Zhu Yi. Her jade-like hands gently massaged Zhu Yi's body as she whispered into Zhu Yi's ear. Your Majesty, Zhu Shuishui's subordinate Zhu Dan has escaped. He has already arrived at Fire King Island and submitted to you. At least he knows how to adapt to the circumstances. Zhu Yi didn't move, but she arched her waist slightly to make her lying position more comfortable. She asked, Did you ask? Since he can escape, can he bring us in? It's very difficult. The pretty servant shook her head and said, He said that the restriction on the island is completely controlled by Zhu Shuishui. It's easy to escape, but to enter we can only attack. Zhu Yi closed her eyes again and her curved eyelashes trembled slightly. She waved her hand lightly and said, "Then we'll wait for another 2,000 years. Let Zhu Shui live for another 2,000 years. Of course, let that bastard Yi Qinghan live for another 2,000 years too." The pretty servant's eyes turned cold and her killing intent filled the air. She said faintly, "Your Majesty, rest assured. After 2,000 years, Yi Qinghan will definitely not be able to escape from the palm of our hands." Chapter 1207. Divine World Supreme Island. There was still a golden palace floating above the island. This was Xianxia's residence. Those who could enter the palace in the god realm were all famous figures. Recently Xianxia had been in a bad mood. Monarch Wind Moon had been refining for 1,000 years, but he still hadn't made a treasure like the Soul Emperor Pavilion. Moreover, Xianxia didn't ask him to make it big or fast. As long as it could resist the turbulent space current, it was fine. But Monarch Wind Moon still said that he needed more time. The entire divine world was on the move. Anyone related to Yi Qinghan and Lord Devour, or even those that had been in contact with them, was captured and interrogated on Supreme Island, hoping to get some clues. But they still couldn't get any information about where Yi Qinghan and the others were hiding. Yi Qinghan had sneaked back to the divine world several times. Xianxia was sure that Yi Qinghan and the others were hiding in a plane that belonged to the divine world, or in a secret domain near the divine world. Lei Kuang was captured, and Venerable Li Quan's clansmen who were hiding in the divine world were discovered. Fire Dragon City's traitor Grand Elder was captured, a Rain Butterfly clan's Grand Elder was captured, and even the Blue Rain clan's Patriarch was captured. The War God Pavilion was spread all over the divine world. There were billions of war gods in every city. Moreover, all the sovereigns of the divine world had submitted. Besides the Fire God, Beast God and Water God secret domains, the rest of the divine world had been searched. However, only a few people knew about the reincarnation secret domain. Later Yi Qinghan brought his people away and they found out about it. Even if they beat Lei Kuang and the others to death, they wouldn't get any information. Yi Qinghan had the secret domain that could change, hide and travel in the endless void. These mysterious abilities made Xianxia feel like he had a knot in his heart. Yi Qinghan could easily enter the divine world, kill people when he had nothing to do and then leave casually. Xianxia couldn't accept it. He had never been toyed with like this. Thus he told himself that he must kill Yi Qinghan and Lord Devour. He must find them. Xiao. A figure suddenly teleported over from Supreme Island. The guards in the city quickly scanned over with their divine senses. When they saw who it was, they quickly knelt down on one knee in midair and said respectfully, "Greetings, young Master Wuxia." Wuxia. Xianxia's second son, the new Misty Monarch. Wuxia didn't even look at the guard who was kneeling in midair, and flew towards the eternal palace with an air of arrogance. Just looking at her bearing, it was obvious that she couldn't compare to Wuhan, who was killed by Yi Qinghan. No wonder Xianxia's favorite child was Wuhan. No wonder Qinghan hated him so much. Wuxia walked into the palace, ignoring the row of maids kneeling in the palace, and walked towards the back of the palace. He knew that his father liked to stay in the back of the palace alone. The rear hall was about the same size as the front hall. The interior of the hall was divided into two levels. On one side there was a flight of stairs that rose slowly. On top of the stairs, there was a huge throne and a golden-haired man was lying on it. Behind him, there were two beautiful maids massaging him, and two maids were kneeling on the ground gently massaging his calves. The maids wore thin clothes and their figures were enchanting. Xianxia's eyes were tightly shut and he had an aquiline nose. Even with his eyes closed he could feel a faint majesty from him. "Father." Wuxia knelt down on one knee and looked at Xianxia with admiration. Xianxia didn't open his eyes and said indifferently, "What's the matter?" "Wuxia has a way to find devoured Yao Wu and Yi Qinghan." Wuxia said excitedly. He knew that in Xianxia's eyes he couldn't compare to Wuhan, so he had been trying his best to please Xianxia. He knew that if he succeeded, his position as the Misty Monarch would definitely be secured. As expected, Xianxia opened his eyes, and a vicious glint flashed across his eyes. He waved his hand to dismiss the maids beside him and said in a deep voice, "Stand up and speak." Yes. Wuxia became even more excited. His handsome face was full of vigor, and he spoke frankly with assurance. "Child, I found a clan called the Wood Spirit Clan. The people of this clan can completely conceal their aura, and they look no different from a dead object. Then I secretly sent 10 of the Wood Spirit Clan's experts to the Fire Dragon continent, and I found a great thing. As soon as I received the news, I immediately came to report." "Get to the point." Xianxia's face revealed a trace of anger. This was what he didn't like about Wuxia. If it was Wuhan, he would have said it briefly and wouldn't ask for credit so that he could have a plan. Yes. Seeing that Xian was angry, Wuxia didn't dare to keep him in suspense anymore and immediately said, "The Wood Spirit Clan has been hiding for 10 years and we have confirmed one thing. Right now, Devour Diawu is not in the Fire Dragon continent." "Is this true?" Xianxia's eyes lit up with a dazzling light like two suns. His aura surged out and the fake 9th grade Wuxia couldn't stand steadily, and he directly knelt down. Could be seen how strong he had become. When Xian found out, he slightly retracted his aura, and Wuxia stood up, saying quickly, "According to the information that the Wood Spirit Clan has gathered in Song City, Yiqinghan has returned to the Fire Dragon continent several times. More than 1,000 years ago, Yiqinghan came again and he only took one person with him. But not long after, the Soul Emperor flew back again. He took away Devour Diawu and Yiqinghan's women. However, Yiqinghan's grandfather still has many relatives, and they are still in the Fire Dragon continent. Did Devour Diawu really leave? Or is it Devour Diawu's scheme? Does she want me to send some venerables to their deaths?" Xian pondered. It wasn't that he didn't want to attack the Fire Dragon continent. After Yiqinghan and Lord Devour had escaped from the Divine World, he had immediately sent several venerables to the Fire Dragon continent, preparing to destroy the Fire Dragon continent to vent his anger. But in the end they were all killed by Lord Devour. Afterwards, when Xian knew that Lord Devour was the Jade Rabbit Divine Beast and had a clone, he didn't have any intention of attacking the Fire Dragon continent. The Fire Dragon continent was a small material plane. If a grade 9 expert from another plane entered, it would definitely cause the Fire Dragon plane to collapse. If grade 9 experts couldn't enter, no matter how many venerables went, they would die. Yeah. Suddenly, Xian shouted and a handsome man who looked similar to Wuxia teleported over. He nodded towards Wuxia then called out to Xian, "Wuya is here, father. What orders do you have?" "Immediately gather 100 venerables and send them to the Misty Continent. Let Wuxia teleport to the Fire Dragon plane. Remember, it doesn't matter if Devour Diawu is there or not. As long as you capture Yiqinghan's relatives, you will have made a great contribution." Following Xian's order, the Supreme Island immediately became busy. The 100 venerables secretly scattered and teleported towards the Misty Continent at their fastest speed. A few days later, a teleportation formation in the Misty City soared into the sky. The dazzling light shone on Wuya and Wuxia's sinister smiles. The martial artists passing by felt a chill in their hearts. Not long after, the sky of the Fire Dragon continent lit up. Golden gates tore through the void and teleported the venerables over. How powerful was the aura of 100 venerables? It could be seen from the frightened faces of the people of the Fire Dragon continent. Chapter 1208. In the endless void outside the Fire God's secret territory, the Soul Emperor Pavilion was still flying around slowly. Fireworks, Yiqingyu, Yiqinggu and Li Shui'er were whispering to each other, while the Night Emperor and the others were cultivating. Mo Xiaoxiao had turned into a stone statue, looking at the endless void and thinking about her cultivation path. Oh no! All of a sudden, a scream arose, interrupting their conversation. Then Lord Devour appeared in the hall, his face frightened. The four of them changed their countenances. Mo Xiaoxiao also moved, turning her head suspiciously. Lord Devour didn't say anything but followed the method the Yaoji had taught him. He controlled the Soul Emperor Pavilion to make a beautiful turn in the sky, heading to the Fire Dragon continent. Yiqingwu's face was as pale as snow. She opened her eyes wide, her voice trembling. "Lord, what happened?" Lord Devour had never shown such a frightened face in front of others. At this moment he didn't care about Yiqinghan anymore, flying directly to the Fire Dragon plane. Did something happen to the Fire Dragon plane? As people were watching him nervously, Lord Devour said coldly, "The Fire Dragon plane has arrived. So many venerables. Ah! Yi Qingwu's body staggered and she fell on the chair behind her. Her body trembled in fear and her tears flowed out. Yi Qingyu also understood what was going on and her face turned snow-white. Fireworks, Li Shui'er and Mo Xiaoxiao furrowed their brows, their faces solemn. Don't rush. Perhaps it's not as bad as we thought. Sigh. Lord Devour heaved a deep sigh. Although his face was calm, the worry in his eyes was thicker. This time Yi Qinghan wanted to take the Yaoji away. Only she understood the restrictions. To ensure Yi Qinghan's safety, she had no choice but to leave the Fire Dragon continent, controlling the Soul Emperor Pavilion to come to the Fire God's secret territory to receive Yi Qinghan. She had originally thought that after so many years she had killed so many venerables sent by the God World, that the God World would not send any more people. Furthermore, she thought that Yi Qinghan would not take too long to steal the Fire God's heart and would be back soon. She had set up some restrictions in the Dark Castle. If anyone went in to investigate, she would know. He even gave Yi Tianlong and the others a jade talisman. If the Immortal World sent people to investigate, Yi Tianlong and the others could crush the jade talisman as soon as they realized that something was amiss, and they would immediately rush back. The God Realm was not sure whether she was there or not, so they would definitely not send people to their deaths immediately. Unexpectedly, Yi Tianlong and the others had crushed the jade talismans at the same time. According to the agreement, many venerables had come from the God World, and it was a sign that Yi Tianlong and the others were completely unable to contend against them. The Soul Emperor Pavilion flew towards the Flame Dragon Plane at the fastest speed possible. The Fire God's Arcane Realm and the Fire Dragon Plane were actually located in the same direction of the Divine Realm. In less than a month, the Soul Emperor Pavilion slowly landed outside of Tsong City. When Lord Devour and Yi Qinggu and the others teleported out and saw the scene in front of them, their faces turned ashen. Yi Qinggu screamed and fainted. Fireworks, Yi Qingyu and Li Shui'er hurried to hold Yi Qinggu. Night Emperor and the others also looked extremely gloomy. The entire Tsong City, the holy land of the Flame Dragon continent, the biggest city, was now in ruins. Broken bones and broken limbs could be vaguely seen. The entire city was filled with the faint smell of blood and corpses. It was like hell. Swish. There was a fluctuation in the air and more than 20 figures teleported. Looking at Lord Devour, whose face was full of murderous aura, they all knelt down and didn't dare to say a word. Big brother Feng Zihua, my grandpa and the others. When Yi Qingyu saw Feng Zi and Hua Hua kneeling down, she left Yi Qinggu and dashed to them. Although Yi Qingyu didn't have any feelings for Yi Tianlong and the others, they were Yi Qinghan's family. Lord Little Yu, Feng Zi is useless. We're not strong enough. Please punish us. Feng Zi's face was full of pain. She grabbed her hair and cried. Chief Yi Tianlong, Yi Qingyu, Yi Baihu, Yi Chong and Senior Yi Luyun were captured. The others were all killed. No one escaped from Tsong City. Young Lady Sainan was in Tsong City at that time. She was killed too. The enemies were 100 venerables. After they arrived, they didn't say a word and just teleported to Tsong City. They captured all the God Realm warriors in Tsong City and destroyed the entire city. Then they left immediately. Hua Chao held back his tears and quickly reported the situation. He and Feng Zi both had daughters who were married to members of the Yi family. After such a long time, they were connected by marriage. It could be said that there were countless relatives in Tsong City. But now they were all dead. Tens of millions of people in Tsong City, all turned into ashes. Everyone was silent as they stared at the ruins in front of them. Everyone was thinking, if Yi Qinghan came back and saw the tragic scene in front of him, with his personality that valued affection the most, how furious, sorrowful, and how much blood would he shed? It's my fault. I was too careless. Get up. It's not your fault. Lord Devour closed his eyes, his back facing the others. He didn't look happy or worried and his voice was indifferent. However, everybody could see that Lord Devour was shivering. They didn't know how to face Yi Qinghan. Lord Devour didn't have the face to see Yi Qinghan. Tsong City had tens of millions of people, and the Yi family had at least several million descendants. But, at this moment they were all buried in Tsong City. Shintashiong, I must kill you. I must kill you. I must kill you. The city was dead silent, but the next second, the Night Emperor's roar broke the silence. The Night Emperor's eyes were bloodshot and the veins on his face bulged. Wind Lord hugged him tightly and his voice was hysterical and sorrowful. He roared a few times and then held his head helplessly. He knelt on the ground and cried. His body was curled up like a child who had lost his family. He was the founder of the Yi family. When he and Wind Lord and Moon Queen returned to the Fire Dragon continent, he was the happiest one. Seeing the Yi family full of descendants, he was extremely proud. He didn't look good with words, but his heart was filled with warmth. Now his dream was shattered. His bloodline had less than 100 descendants. All the descendants of the Yi family in the Fire Dragon Island lived in Song City. For the time being, besides Lord Devour and Mo Xiao, everybody else shed tears. More and more warriors came to this place. They started to clean up the ruins in the city. Many corpses and bones were dug out and they were placed in the open space outside the city. The Fire Dragon continent had done its worst massacre. The blood debt with Xianxia was getting deeper and deeper. Lord Devour asked Mo Xiao to take Yi Qingyu, Yi Qinggu and the others who had fainted to the Soul Emperor Pavilion to rest. She stood alone outside Song City, looking at the new graves. A drop of tear rolled down from the corner of her eye. She had been thinking about a problem. If Yi Qinghan came back, how should she face him? Chapter 1209. Good job, Wuxia. We all did a great job this time. Inside the Eternal Palace, Xianxia looked at the dozens of God Realm martial artists in front of him, his face full of excitement. Originally, he was prepared to sacrifice these 100 venerables. He did not expect that Shijiawu was really not in the Fire Dragon plane. The 100 venerables successfully captured all the God Realm experts in Song City, and also destroyed Song City, slaughtering all of Yi Qinghan's clansmen. How could Xianxia's heart only be satisfied? Is that Yi Tianlong? Xianxia looked at the group of martial artists in front of him, who were basically refining divine crystals, and sneered. These people were all suppressed by the power of those venerables, and did not even have the chance to attack. With the addition of 100 people, they immediately sealed all the divine crystals and captured them. I am. Who are you? Yi Tianlong was short and his old-fashioned face was filled with anger. His voice was as cold as ice. Countless disciples of Song City had been killed, and all of them were brought to the God Realm and thrown into spatial artifacts. At this moment they suddenly appeared in this strange place. Who is Yi Qingyu? Xianxia ignored Yi Tianlong and continued to speak coldly. Yi Qingyu did not have a good temper like Yi Tianlong and knew how to endure. He roared, "Is it me? What's wrong? Want to kill me? Come on, bastard." As he spoke, Yi Qingyu used one hand to play a finger-guessing game and rushed towards Xianxia. However, without divine power he was no different from a heavenly God Realm martial artist with his physical strength. Wuxia, who was beside him, kicked at him and Yi Qingyu was sent flying into the wall. Blood flowed from his head and half of his bones and internal organs were shattered. "Don't move!" Yi Tianlong shouted. He knew that if he was impulsive at this moment he would die in vain. He was not afraid of death, but if he died for nothing, it would make Yi Qinghan even sadder. "Yi Baihu," Xianxia said calmly as he read out another name. These were all names that Wuxia had obtained from the wood spirit race. They were all the relatives that Yi Qinghan cared about the most. But this time no one responded. Yi Baihu had always been a shrewd person. He knew very well that the reason this person had captured them was to threaten Yi Qinghan. At this moment he was confirming everyone's identity one by one. This meant that there was a problem. He was afraid that once this demonic godlike man confirmed everyone's identity, he would leave the important ones behind and kill everyone else. If he did not admit his identity, then everyone would be able to survive. Bang! But he was wrong. Xianxia glanced at Wuxia. Then Wuxia suddenly made a move, grabbing a deity realm martial artist beside him with a claw, directly tearing his head apart. He didn't even have the chance to scream before he died instantly. That was a doyen of the Yi family. "Who is Yi Baihu?" Xianxia's voice continued to sound. Yi Baihu stood up helplessly, his eyes filled with regret and rage. His body trembled continuously, but he did not act rashly under Yi Tianlong's stern gaze. Yi Chong, Yi Luyun, Yu Shishue, Dragon Bastard. Names were read out one by one. Dragon Bastard had been a guest with Long Sinan in Song City and had also been captured. His daughter's tragic death seemed to have aged this little old man by tens of thousands of years. At this moment, if not for Yi Tianlong holding his hand tightly, he would have already charged forward. "All right, Wuxia, I'll leave the rest to you. Xianxia's lips curled into a smile as he turned around and walked towards the back of the palace. Wuxia ordered people to separate Yi Tianlong and the other important people and began interrogating them. Secret realm of reincarnation? Half a month later, the results of the interrogation were out. Yi Tianlong and the others were stubborn, but some of the Doyan and descendants of the Yi family were not as stubborn. Especially some of the direct descendants, who enjoyed all the glory and wealth and relied on their status to obtain divine crystals to become gods. Wuxia used all kinds of torture methods in the god world, and finally someone confessed. The secret realm of reincarnation was exposed. Haha, Yi Qinghan, devouring butterfly dance, let's see how you survive this time. You killed my children and stole my treasures, I'll definitely turn your bones to dust. Xianxiong laughed wantonly. Wuxia and Wuya looked at each other. Wuxia asked doubtfully, Lord Father, no one knows the location of the secret realm of reincarnation. How can we find them? We don't know, but there's one person who definitely knows. Xianxiong smiled and shook his head. You don't need to care about these things. Pass down my orders. Get Wind Moon Sovereign to speed up the refining of the spatial treasure. If he can't refine it within 10,000 years, there's no point in keeping him alive. Wuxia and Wuya were overjoyed. In the god world, the people who were most afraid of Yi Qinghan were the two of them. Xianxiong couldn't kill Yi Qinghan, but if they met Yi Qinghan, they would definitely be killed instantly. During this time, Wuxia didn't even dare to go to the Misty Continent. Pass down the message, let all the spies be on high alert. I reckon that after Yi Qinghan receives the news, he will most likely come back for revenge. You two don't go out. Don't kill Yi Qinghan's relatives either. Wait for Yi Qinghan to take the bait. Xianxiong gave a few more orders, then walked towards the back of the hall while laughing. Fire Dragon Continent, the sky was exceptionally gloomy. Although it was spring, the sun was shining brightly and everything was recovering. Millions of people had died. The stench of rotten corpses and blood still lingered in the air. Lord Devour entered the Soul Emperor Pavilion and didn't come out. Yi Qinggu and the others also entered the Soul Emperor Pavilion after paying their respects to the dead and didn't come out. Yi Qinggu was sick, very sick. Not to mention God Realm warriors, even ordinary warriors wouldn't get sick. It was clear that the massacre of Tsang City had hurt Yi Qinggu a lot. Fireworks and Li Shue were taking care of Yi Qinggu, while Moon Queen was taking care of the Night Emperor, whose eyes were still lifeless. Mo Xiao, Xiao Fengjun and Marshal Snow were arranging things outside, while Yi Qingyu was following Lord Devour to learn how to control the Soul Emperor Pavilion. The Soul Emperor Pavilion had to go and receive Yi Qinghan, but Lord Devour's body couldn't leave the Fire Dragon Continent. Who knew if the God World would send more people? The next time it wouldn't just be a massacre, but the entire Fire Dragon Continent would be erased, of course. The most important thing was that Lord Devour didn't dare to see Yi Qinghan. Yi Qingyu had learned restrictions from the Yaoji for a long time. It wasn't complicated to control the Soul Emperor Pavilion. She didn't need to arrange any restrictions. She just needed to control it. My lord, do you think the reincarnation secret realm needs to bring people here? Mo Xiaoxiao entered the Soul Emperor Pavilion, asking Lord Devour worriedly. Lord Devour had thought about this problem. He waved his hand and said, the reincarnation secret realm is hidden. It's surrounded by space vortexes. Little Han said that there was no record of the reincarnation secret realm in the Beast secret territory. Even if Xianxiong knows about it, it's okay. He can't find the reincarnation secret realm. Moreover, my clone is there. I've set a restriction on the passage to get in. If Xianxiong comes, I'll make him fall into the space vortex forever. Yeah, that's good. I won't go out this time. I'll stay with you in the Fire Dragon Continent. Mo Xiaoxiao felt relieved. Then she looked at Lord Devour worriedly. She was afraid that Lord Devour would have no one to accompany him. Lord Devour waved his hand faintly. You have to go. They're too weak. Although the Soul Emperor Pavilion is safe in the void, you've experienced many things. You can make the decision. Mo Xiaoxiao sighed begrudgingly, then left. Several months later, under Yi Qingyu's control and Mo Xiaoxiao's command, the Soul Emperor Pavilion brought people to the Fire Dragon secret realm. They were ready to bring Yi Qinghan home or wait for the Soul Jade slip in the Soul Emperor Pavilion to explode, which would kill Yi Qinghan. Chapter 12:10. Yi Qinghan knew nothing about what was happening outside. He didn't even know what was happening inside the fire god mystery realm. The control of the God-Slayer's spear got harder as it progressed, but its power got stronger. The 10 God-Slayer's spears were like 10 poisonous hidden weapons that attacked the enemy from all directions. As long as one of them broke through the defense and attacked the origin energy, there was a high chance of killing the enemy if it suddenly rotated. In the first 1,000 years, Yi Qinghan could rotate 6 God-Slayer's spears. But in the second 1,000 years he could only control 9 God-Slayer's spears to rotate at the same time. It had already been 2,600 years, but he still couldn't make 10 God-Slayer's spears rotate at the same time. No. I will go crazy if I continue to practice like this. The God-Slayer's spears in the air exploded bit by bit. The precious origin energy couldn't be kept and dissipated in the air. Yi Qinghan held his head. The veins on his face bulged and his face was filled with pain. He had always wanted to make the 10 God-Slayer's spears rotate at the same time to reach perfection. He had a feeling that if the 10 God-Slayer's spears rotated at the same time, it would be extremely powerful. When it reached perfection it would be even more powerful. That was why he spent 600 years stubbornly, but he still couldn't achieve it. Kneeling on the ground, Yi Qinghan held his head and shook it continuously. He felt like his head was going to explode. He didn't know if there was a problem with his soul, or if his soul wasn't strong enough to control the 10 God-Slayer's spears to rotate at the same time. But he didn't dare to check his soul space. He could only stubbornly practice it again and again. He was very afraid. 1,600 years ago he suddenly felt a throbbing in the depths of his soul. He knew that something must have happened. He even thought of disregarding everything and abandoning the fire god's heart. He wanted to rush out and go home to take a look. But he forcefully suppressed the fear in his heart and practiced the God-Slayer's spear again and again, causing himself to enter a state of madness. With the help of practice he didn't think too much. He didn't think about those things that he was extremely afraid of. He was very clear that if something really happened with his impulsive character he would definitely think of a way to sneak attack Xianxiang and kill him. With Xianxiang's strength at the pinnacle of 9th grade sovereign realm, there was only one outcome for him: death. Therefore he told himself that even if he had to go out he had to obtain the fire god's heart. All these years of hard work couldn't go to waste. With the fire god's heart and the activation of the fire god's battle armor he could escape. No matter how impulsive he was he could still preserve his life. Only by preserving his life would he have the chance to kill Xianxiang. I will definitely obtain the heart of the fire god. Shui, don't force me. Don't force me to attack you. Yi Qinghan growled in a low voice over and over again, trying to forget the swelling pain in his head that felt like it was about to explode, trying to forget the worry and fear deep in his soul. A long time passed. The swelling pain in Yi Qinghan's brain finally disappeared. He fell to the ground weakly, gasping for air, and fell into a deep sleep. After an unknown period of time Yi Qinghan woke up slowly. He opened his eyes and stared blankly at the stone wall above his head. In a trance he didn't know where he was, who he was, and what he was going to do. His mind started to wake up gradually. At this moment Yi Qinghan had a strong feeling deep in his soul, as if his soul was sending him a message, asking him to investigate and pay attention. This feeling came very suddenly and it was very inexplicable. It made Yi Qinghan's entire body break out in cold sweat. Was his soul finally going to undergo another great change? Yi Qinghan knew that what he had been running away from was about to happen. He widened his eyes in horror and looked around, a little at a loss. If he died like this he really didn't dare to imagine how sad his family, his women and his children would be. How disappointed would Li Shuo, or Lord Devourer and Demon Devourer, be? He forced himself not to pay attention to the soul space, but his soul consciousness started to explore it. His eyes opened wider and the fear on his face grew thicker. He was a level 9 expert Han Yijun, and he was also the #1 genius in the divine world. But he was also a human and he would be afraid and he would have 7 emotions and 6 desires. Of course he would be at a loss and he would be frightened. After 1,600 years, the soul space had become even stranger. At this moment the soul space was definitely bigger than an ordinary material plane. However, the soul sea floating in the space had become as big as a fist. The lightning within the origin energy encircling the space continued to strike the fist-like sea of souls from all directions in a tyrannical manner. The soul sea had become a golden sphere, emitting a beautiful halo. At the same time, the soul pressure in it was getting stronger and stronger. Before Yi Qinghan's soul sea had undergone any change, it had been quenched by the lightning and thunder, and it had started to shrink. At this moment, as Yi Qinghan had expected, the soul sea of 1,000,000 miles had been compressed into the size of a fist in the past 1,600 years. Such a huge soul sea had been compressed to such a small size, and the density inside was absolutely high. The absence of an explosion had already exceeded Yi Qinghan's expectations. But at this moment it was still shrinking. When something was compressed to the limit, there was only one ending: a big explosion. Last time Yi Qinghan didn't know why he didn't die, and instead formed such a strange new soul space. This time Yi Qinghan didn't believe that he would have such good luck. Most importantly, the last time his soul had undergone a change, it was because of the collision between the dark force and the light force. This time the essence was different. When the soul sea was compressed to the limit, it would definitely explode. If the soul sea was torn apart and collapsed, how could he survive? I can't wait. I must get the heart of fire god and get out immediately. I must think of all ways to kill Xianxia in a short period of time. I don't have the time to wait, and I can't gamble. The fear of death caused Yi Qinghan to make a decision. He decided to come out of seclusion and force Zhu Yi to kill the fire god. Then he would leave immediately. With the fire god battle armor, he would think of all ways to kill Xianxia, obtain the secret technique of possession, help Xiaohe reconstruct his true body, and allow everyone to return to the deity world. This sphere formed by the soul sea was showing signs of exploding at any moment. He estimated that in at most 500 years, it would definitely be compressed to the limit and then explode. He had to make one last gamble before he died. After thinking through everything, Yi Qinghan relaxed. When a person knew that he was going to die, he wouldn't be so afraid of death. Swish! 10 God Slayers' spears whizzed out and revolved in the air for a moment. Yi Qinghan began his final experiment. In the end, 9 spears could revolve at the same time, but the 10th spear still revolved for a moment before collapsing and exploding. This also caused the other 9 God Slayers' spears to explode as well. He laughed bitterly. He knew that with his current soul spirit strength, he wouldn't be able to revolve 10 God Slayers' spears at the same time. Yi Qinghan stopped thinking about it. With 9 God Slayers' spears that could revolve, he already had the confidence to deal with Zhu Yi. With one hand he summoned the God Slayer's spear. Yi Qinghan scanned with his divine senses and realized that Xiaohe was still in a deep sleep. He sighed silently. He didn't know if he could see Xiaohe wake up and evolve again before he died. In the Battle Imperial Palace, Yi Qinghan immediately released his domineering divine senses and scanned the entire Fire God mystic realm. When he saw the Fire God Island's barrier dimming, he was shocked. With the God Slayer's saber in his hand, he locked onto Zhu Yi's figure and flew towards Zhu Yi's back garden. Chapter 12:11. Zhu Yi's back garden was very beautiful. During this period of time, it had undergone extensive remodeling. Many rare flowers and trees had been transplanted. It was currently dusk, and the sunset glow in the distance looked like it was being braised. Between the shadows of the trees, the red light shone on the beautiful green trees, the red flowers and the blue water. It was a breathtaking scene. Zhu Yi reclined on a jade cushion in a pavilion. There were 4 maids attending to her at the side. The maids were all as beautiful as flowers. However, when they stood beside Zhu Yi, they were like a few green leaves setting off a red flower. Today, Zhu Yi was wearing a pink and white satin dress. This woman was born to wear clothes. The pink and white dress and the red rays of the sun made her skin look like it was white and rosy, bright and alluring. At this moment she reclined with a lazy posture and a pleasant demeanor. The faint aura of a queen aroused the desire of men to conquer her. Yi Qinghan released his aura and flew towards the back garden without any scruples. This caused the guards and maids in the great general palace to be alarmed. They all rushed towards the back garden. What was Zhu Yi's current status? How could she allow Yi Qinghan to barge around as he pleased? If not for Yi Qinghan's special status and formidable strength, he would have been killed by the guards. Can't wait to obtain the fire god's heart? Hehe. Zhu Yi glanced at Yi Qinghan's direction and waved her hand to dismiss the maids. She didn't move and continued to pretend to sleep while waiting for Yi Qinghan's arrival. The maids obediently retreated, but the personal maid stayed behind. Previously, Yi Qinghan had taken advantage of Zhu Yi. She wouldn't be at ease to let Zhu Yi face Yi Qinghan alone. The guards in the palace received the personal maid's message and dispersed. Yi Qinghan also flew to the back garden and directly landed. The personal maid activated the barrier of the back garden to prevent the conversation between the three of them from being heard by outsiders. Young Master Yi is out of seclusion. Congratulations. Please take a seat. Zhu Yi didn't get up. Her snow-white arm pointed at the jade chair in front of her. Yi Qinghan didn't sit down. He only glanced at the lower 9th rank maid and said, I have something to discuss with Miss Zhu Yi. Let the others wait. Irrelevant people. There was a hint of anger in the maidservant's eyes as she stared directly at Yi Qinghan. As Zhu Yi's beloved concubine, and her strength had reached level 9, she was now above tens of thousands of people in the fire god's secret land. How could Yi Qinghan say that she was a nobody? What, you have a problem with that? Yi Qinghan's tiger-like eyes were filled with coldness as he stared at the serving girl. His killing intent was extremely obvious as he locked onto the serving girl. It seemed like he would kill her in an instant if there was any disagreement. Young Master Yi, you've misunderstood me. She's not my maid. She's one of us. There's no harm in saying anything. Zhu Yi smiled faintly. She dissolved Yi Qinghan's murderous aura. One of us. Humph, they're really a pair of lilies. Yi Qinghan snorted coldly. He thought to himself, no wonder Zhu Yi was so easily aroused by a casual touch. After so many years I didn't find out that she had a man. It turns out that she had a woman. Looking at the faint mocking expression on the maid's face, Yi Qinghan's killing intent soared in his eyes. He shouted coldly, this time I'm going to talk about something very important. Miss Zhu Yi, please ask your servant to leave. As soon as Yi Qinghan's words came out, the maid's face suddenly turned livid. Zhu Yi's pretty face also changed slightly. How could Yi Qinghan be so overbearing? Who did he think he was? Where did he think this place was? The killing intent in the maid's eyes soared. The surface of her body had already begun to condense a faint power of origin. Zhu Yi was also angry. Isn't this Yi Qinghan too arrogant? She just thought that she would be able to kill the patriarch of the fire god tribe in a few hundred years. At that time she could completely torture and kill Yi Qinghan. Zhu Yi forcefully suppressed the killing intent in her heart. She waved her hand and said to the maid, you can leave first. The maid left embarrassedly with a venomous gaze. Zhu Yi opened the shield again. She then sat up and said leisurely, young Master Yi, what's the matter? Why are you in such a hurry? Yi Qinghan pondered for a moment. He thought that if he let Zhu Yi attack the Fire God Island just like that, she might find all kinds of excuses to evade. At that time, if she insisted on not going, Yi Qinghan wouldn't be able to kill the patriarch of the Fire God tribe alone. His eyes turned and he had an idea. He said with a fiery gaze, Miss Zhu Yi, last time you said that you wanted me to give you some time. Now that more than 2,000 years have passed, isn't that long enough? I'm sincere to you. I hope you won't give me an answer that will disappoint me. This again. Zhu Yi looked at Yi Qinghan's incomparably fiery gaze and cursed in her heart. Just now, she asked the maid to come down to prevent Yi Qinghan from making excessive requests. Although Zhu Li and the other two were practicing the joint attack formation, it was actually not very powerful. If it was used to scare people, it could still be useful. If they fought with the patriarch of the Fire God tribe unless they launched a sneak attack, it was absolutely impossible for them to cooperate with her to kill the patriarch of the Fire God tribe. However, the three of them had been exposed last time. Would the patriarch of the Fire God tribe give them a chance to launch a sneak attack? Yi Qinghan was different. Last time, he and Yi Qinghan cooperated perfectly and successfully killed the Grand Elder. With Yi Qinghan around, the Fire God tribe couldn't fly out even if he had wings. She could only smile and say, young Master Yi, can you wait until after we kill the patriarch of the Fire God tribe? At that time, Zhu Yi will fulfill her wish. I will definitely fly together with you. Humph. Miss Zhu Yi, are you playing with me? What a waste of my infatuation with you. You rejected me because of the maid just now, right? Don't think that I can't see that you are playing with me. It seems that you don't plan to give me the heart of the fire god? Since that's the case, I will take my leave. Yi Qinghan stood up cheerfully. His face was cold and his words were even more pressing. Then he flicked his sleeves and turned to fly into the sky. It was the direction of the teleportation formation. Moreover, his speed was extremely fast. It didn't seem like he was putting on an act at all. Zhu Yi sneered. Without her, could Yi Qinghan open the teleportation formation? However, after a moment, seeing Yi Qinghan break the shield of the back garden and rush toward the teleportation formation at lightning speed, Zhu Yi was a little flustered. Could it be that he knew about restrictions and could really open the teleportation formation? Immediately, her body turned into a flying feather and flew into the sky. She shouted, "Yi Qinghan, stop right there." In a moment of desperation, Zhu Yi shouted loudly, alarming the entire Fire King Island. At this moment, Yi Qinghan did not use the ghost transformation. There was no trace of the Fire God clan's aura on his body. Suddenly, countless divine senses swept over. The entire Fire King Island was alarmed. Countless supremacies teleported out, surrounded by the power of origin and filled with killing intent. At the same time, several martial artists below grade 9 on the island were also alarmed. All of them teleported out and locked onto Yi Qinghan, immediately preparing to attack. "Those who block me will die." Yi Qinghan waved his hand. 10 God Slayer spears revolved around his body. The power of origin surrounded his body. His black hair fluttered in the wind. His eyes were cold as if an ancient god of war had descended, insufferably arrogant. Several martial artists below grade 9 quickly retracted their attacks. They did not recognize Yi Qinghan, but they recognized the God Slayer spears. The Grand Elder was killed by this silver spear. Countless supremacies were even worse off. As soon as Yi Qinghan condensed the power of space, they were immediately pressed down and smashed to the ground, spewing blood. Chapter 12:12. Young Master Yi, what is the meaning of this? Zhu Yi saw that Yi Qinghan was about to make a move, so she transmitted her voice angrily. Her body was also surrounded by the power of source, and the power of space quietly condensed. The pretty maid teleported and appeared beside her, ready to make a move. What is the meaning of this? Yi Qinghan looked back and transmitted his voice coldly. I am sincere to Miss, but Miss has teased me several times. My heart is cold. I will go and see if I can open the teleportation array now. If I can't, I will go to the endless void and try my luck. If I can't return to the immortal world and my power of source is exhausted, I can only blame my bad luck. But Miss Zhu Yi wants to keep me here? Do it and see if Yi Qinghan will even frown. Even if I can't get Miss, dying in your hands is also a kind of joy. After transmitting his voice angrily, Yi Qinghan actually put away the God Slayer spear and the power of source. He stood proudly in the sky and looked at Zhu Yi indifferently. It was as if he was facing death calmly and was willing to sacrifice himself for love. Zhu Yi's beautiful eyes lit up, and she was about to release the power of space. Although she didn't know if Yi Qinghan was sincere, Yi Qinghan's heroic spirit at this moment still moved her slightly. The anger in her body immediately disappeared, and then she thought that if it wasn't for Yi Qinghan, she wouldn't be very confident in dealing with the Fire God Patriarch. She softened and put away the power of source. She pretended to be moved and transmitted her voice. Young Master Yi, can we go back first? We can talk about it when we go back. Zhu Yi is begging you. All go back. Young Master Yi is this king's most distinguished guest. Zhu Yi glanced at the 9th grade martial artist in the sky and said coldly. After that, she looked at Yi Qinghan with a pleading expression, as if everything could be discussed when they go back. All right, I hope Miss won't lie to Yi Qinghan this time. Yi Qinghan was delighted. He had achieved his goal. His expression softened as he followed Zhu Yi back to the back garden. As soon as they returned to the backyard and opened the barrier, Zhu Yi pulled Yi Qinghan's hand and comforted him with soft words. She made him sit on the soft couch and picked up the teacup at the side, pretending to pour tea for Yi Qinghan. However, her mind was spinning quickly. He was thinking about how to fool Yi Qinghan. As long as he could drag it out for another few hundred years, he would have to wait for Zhu Li and the other two to master their battle formation. If they killed the Fire God Patriarch together, no matter if Yi Qinghan made a fuss or not, he would be dead. Unexpectedly, Yi Qinghan stretched out his hand and directly hugged her from behind. He rolled on the jade couch. His hands flew up and down and her robe turned into rags. Before she could react, she had been stripped naked. Then Yi Qinghan's body shook and his robe turned into blue rags. He looked at Zhu Yi, who was twisting her body in anger and about to attack, and said with a firm expression, "If I can't have Miss, I'd rather die. If Miss is not willing, please kill Yi Qinghan." Zhu Yi's beautiful face paled and she was about to retaliate in anger, but she hesitated after hearing Yi Qinghan's words. She hesitated for only half a second, but it was only half a second before her lower body was filled with a fiery heat. Zhu Yi shouted and her whole body trembled. A feeling that she had never felt before occupied her soul. She thought that when she was having fun with that pretty maid, they could only rely on each other's tongues and cold tools. After being hugged by Yi Qinghan, she was disturbed by his masculine aura. She already had a strange feeling in her heart. At this moment her lower body felt hot and full, and it was more stimulating than ever. Yi Qinghan, how dare you? Suddenly, something strange happened. With Yi Qinghan's fierce attack, billions of golden soul threads suddenly began to quietly attack her soul. At the same time, a flow of God power quietly entered her body from Yi Qinghan's lower body, rushing towards her divine crystal like lightning. The thing she was most worried about had happened. It had actually been quietly sealed by Yi Qinghan with her divine crystal. She had always been unwilling to have sex with Yi Qinghan. Besides the fact that she didn't like men, there was another important reason. She was afraid that Yi Qinghan would suddenly attack her when they were having intercourse. As a result, Yi Qinghan had really attacked her. She was frightened, looking at the man with the evil smile on his face. She felt that he was very scary. She suddenly realized that she had understood many things. Today's situation had been planned by Yi Qinghan all along. In other words, she had been tricked by Yi Qinghan all along. Today, Yi Qinghan's first confession had messed up her heart. Then he had resolutely left, which had enraged her. Then he had faced death with equanimity, which had softened her heart once again. Finally, he had forcefully entered her body, which had caused her to be even more confused. While her mind was in a mess, he suddenly attacked her soul, which disturbed her soul. Since her soul was in a mess, she naturally couldn't control the power source that protected the divine crystal in her body. Thus, her divine crystal had been easily sealed by Yi Qinghan. The divine crystal was the foundation of a martial artist. Without God power, not to mention condensing the power of space, they couldn't even open the space ring and send messages. Be good, don't move. Your soul skill isn't even worth mentioning in front of me. I forgot to tell you, the strength of my soul has already reached the pinnacle of the 9th grade. Yi Qinghan smiled evilly and continued to enjoy Zhu Yi's beautiful body. However, his gaze was incomparably deep as he looked into Zhu Yi's eyes, as if he could tell what she was thinking. Zhu Yi's body turned cold and she didn't dare to move anymore. She looked at the man in front of her, who could only be considered delicate and handsome. This was the first time she felt that he was so scary. She believed that she was smarter than others and always liked to play others in the palm of her hand. She didn't expect that at this moment, she would be played by Yi Qinghan, and in the most humiliating way. She had lost. She had been utterly defeated. Yi Qinghan didn't care about Zhu Yi's resentful gaze. He happily vented the evil fire and grievances that he had suppressed for many years. His divine sense was locked onto Zhu Yi. Zhu Yi's soul was only at the honorable realm. She was no match for him in terms of soul skills. However, it was better to be safe than sorry. He didn't want to fail miserably. Wasn't Zhu Yi, who was in pain and happiness under his body, just because she was careless? Finally, after a long time, along with Yi Qinghan's wolf howl, millions of offspring sprayed on Zhu Yi's beautiful face. Only then did he lazily stand up and take out a robe. After putting it on, he poured himself a cup of tea and looked coldly at Zhu Yi. Miss Zhu Yi, give me your soul fire, or I'll send you, your woman, and everyone from Fire King Island to the Netherworld realm. Zhu Yi sat up coldly. She grabbed a rag beside her and wiped the white liquid off her face. She looked at Yi Qinghan with incomparable resentment and said, Yi Qinghan, you're really ruthless. You want me to be your soul slave? Dream on. Kill me if you have the guts. Do you think you can still live after killing me? Without me, you definitely can't open the transportation array. Returning to the divine realm through the endless void is even more suicidal. Without me, you are no match for Fire God. Therefore, without me, you will definitely die. Haha, Yi, you stupid woman. Do you think I don't know that you have been feigning civility with me since the beginning? Do you think I don't know that you have always wanted to kill me? Do you think I don't know that you want to obtain my Fire God's battle armor? Do you really think that I can't return to the divine realm without you? Let me tell you, forget about returning to the divine realm. Even if I fly for tens of thousands of years in the endless void, I don't need to worry about not having enough origin energy. Carefully. Yi Qinghan laughed loudly. Immediately, surging origin energy surged out from his body. The origin energy surrounded Yi Qinghan's body in circles. Only after it had surrounded Yi Qinghan a few hundred times did he retract his origin energy. Zhu Yi's face turned completely pale. She looked at Yi Qinghan in disbelief. At this moment she finally understood why Yi Qinghan had always been so unscrupulous. It turned out that he had been hiding such a trump card. With so much origin energy he could escape from the endless void and return to the divine realm at any time. She didn't lose unjustly. Chapter 12-13. Supreme Divine Emperor I Yi Qinghan, swear that as long as Zhu Yi helps me kill the patriarch of the Fire God tribe and obtain the heart of the Fire God, I will return the heart of soul to her and never step into the Fire God's secret realm again. If I break this oath, please punish me and kill me. Suddenly Yi Qinghan raised one hand and swore to the sky with a solemn expression. Zhu Yi was astonished, then her eyes brightened. Yi Qinghan smiled and said, Zhu Yi, if you had cooperated with me from the beginning, I would not have done such a beastly thing today. Give me the flame of soul. Otherwise I will have to destroy you. Zhu Yi looked at Yi Qinghan's handsome face, and her heart was filled with complicated emotions. After a moment she sighed deeply, and a white flame floated out from between her eyebrows. It entered Yi Qinghan's forehead and disappeared. Yi Qinghan heaved a sigh of relief. This time he was gambling. His sea of soul could explode in 500 years, so he had to gamble. He wanted to obtain the heart of the Fire God in the shortest time possible, then return to the realm of gods and find a way to kill Xianxia. If Zhu Yi was not subdued, firstly he might be plotted against by Zhu Yi. Secondly, without Zhu Yi he did not have the ability to kill the patriarch of the Fire God tribe and obtain the heart of the Fire God. Therefore today he had no choice but to use despicable means to ambush Zhu Yi and seal her divine crystal. However, after obtaining Zhu Yi's flame of soul, Yi Qinghan's guilt towards Zhu Yi completely disappeared. The flame of soul was the source of the soul. It contained Zhu Yi's memories, so Yi Qinghan easily knew what Zhu Yi was thinking. He was truly a bamboo leaf snake. Her mind was filled with countless schemes, all aimed at him. One of them was to secretly poison Yi Qinghan. This poison was colorless and odorless. It could be spread in the air and people would be poisoned unknowingly. The three traitors of the Great Elder, the lower 9th grade war gods, were poisoned by this poison and had no choice but to betray him. If it weren't for his good luck today, he would have died after killing the Fire God Patriarch. In Zhu Yi's memory, she had never had sex with a man. Her people were all killed when she was very young and the women in her clan were raped. Zhu Yi did not lie to him about this. Zhu Yi hated men very much. She had always been doing things with that made with fake phoenixes. No wonder when she was violated by him a few times, she was a little flustered and aroused. This time when he forced himself on her, it made her even more confused for a second, which was why it was so easy to control her this time. Yi Qinghan heaved a sigh of relief. When a martial artist reached their level, there would be a warning in the depths of their soul. If Yi Qinghan wanted to kill them, Zhu Yi would be even more vigilant. However, Yi Qinghan had no intention of killing her at all. He only wanted to seal her, which was why Zhu Yi's heart did not react, and he was lucky enough to capture her. Looking at Zhu Yi's gloomy face, her beautiful naked body sitting on the jade chair, she did not even wipe off the remaining bodily fluids on her hair. Yi Qinghan's heart softened again and he said softly, Zhu Yi, don't blame me. Since you want to kill me, it's only natural for me to deal with you and even kill you. I have sworn the Divine Emperor blood oath to enter the Fire God mystic realm. I only want to obtain the heart of the Fire God, not to enslave the Fire God tribe. Once I obtain the heart of the Fire God, I will naturally return your flame of spirit and leave immediately. If you still hate me, you can find me Yi Qinghan for revenge. If you have the ability to kill me, Yi Qinghan will definitely not blame you. Zhu Yi sighed faintly and looked at Yi Qinghan with a complicated expression. Sigh. I Zhu Yi have been scheming my entire life. I never expected to be schemed against by you today. I admit defeat. Yi Qinghan, you are a great person. Zhu Yi falling into your hands is not embarrassing. Put on your clothes. I will violate your beautiful body again. Yi Qinghan smiled faintly and glanced at Zhu Yi's twin peaks and the mysterious zone. Zhu Yi's face turned green and red immediately. She took out a dress and put it on. Yi Qinghan drank his tea and looked at the beauty putting on her clothes. He felt a sense of satisfaction. He had been in the fire god mystic realm for so many years, but today was the best day. It felt great to be in control of everything. It was a pity that such days would come to an end when he returned to the divine world. When can we attack the fire god island? Recollecting his thoughts, Yi Qinghan began to talk about serious matters. Zhu Yi's life was in Yi Qinghan's hands. In addition, she knew that as long as the fire god tribe leader was killed, her bitter days would come to an end. She quickly said, "Any time." Zhu Li and the other two are almost done with their combined battle formation. With the three of them and the two of us, Zhu Shuishui will definitely die. That's good. Yi Qinghan grinned and said excitedly, "Rest for 3 days and think about the pros and cons. 3 days later we will go to the fire god island. Don't think of any tricks to deal with me. Your soul flame is in my hands. With my powerful soul force I know exactly what you are thinking. Let's cooperate well. Go out and calm your subordinates' emotions first." Zhu Yi was very clear about it. She sighed inwardly that Yi Qinghan's methods were much stronger than hers. Yi Qinghan made a divine emperor blood oath that he would leave immediately after obtaining the fire god's heart and return her soul flame. Just based on this, Zhu Yi didn't dare to have any other thoughts. If Yi Qinghan didn't make this blood oath, Zhu Yi felt that she wouldn't be able to live anymore. It was very likely that she would perish together with Yi Qinghan. As soon as the barrier opened, a pretty maid immediately teleported in. Seeing the torn clothes on the jade table and the lingering scent of their bodily fluids in the air, her expression immediately changed. Her killing intent soared as she glared at Yi Qinghan and shouted, "You, swish." Yi Qinghan glanced over and activated the soul extinguisher. He then condensed a palm with the power of space and slapped forward. Boom. The maid was only a lower 9th grade. Yi Qinghan's soul extinguisher attack was strange. She was hit and flew backward while spurting out blood. Zhu Yi wanted to move, but her expression only changed. She didn't move. Instead she looked at Yi Qinghan and begged, "Beloved, don't be impulsive. Young Master Yi, please show mercy." Yi Qinghan picked up the cup of tea and leisurely took a sip. He looked at Zhu Yi and said, "If I don't show mercy, would she still be alive? And next time don't blame me for not giving you face." Zhu Yi quickly nodded and flashed over. She carried the maid and immediately left the backyard. The maid's eyes were filled with hatred, but she could only slowly heal her body. The two of them flashed and went to Zhu Yi's private room. "Your Majesty, how could you have an affair with her? How could you?" Yi Qinghan showed mercy. The maid's internal organs were only shaken. After a while most of them were healed. She immediately looked at the dejected Zhu Yi and roared with a ferocious expression. He was as angry as a man who saw his woman being toyed with. "Don't say any more, beloved. I lost. I lost completely." 2 streams of tears flowed down from Zhu Yi's eyes. Thinking of the humiliation she had just suffered, especially when Yi Qinghan wantonly played with her body, her delicate body trembled uncontrollably. "What's wrong? Your Majesty, what happened?" The maid felt that something was wrong. When she thought of Yi Qinghan's unscrupulous behavior, she had a bad feeling. "My flame of soul was taken by Yi Qinghan." Zhu Yi hugged the maid like a helpless child. She cried bitterly and told the maid what had happened. After the maid finished listening, she sat on the ground powerlessly. Her eyes were filled with fear. She lost her voice and murmured, "He is not from the bloodline of the beast god. He is a devil from the devil realm. He is too terrifying. Even your Majesty was tricked by him." Yi Qinghan's divine sense had been locked onto Zhu Yi. She had given Zhu Yi 3 days to let her vent her emotions. After 3 days she would be able to stabilize her emotions and use her full strength to kill the fire god patriarch in one fell swoop. In the current situation he could not afford to make any mistakes. Otherwise he would be consigned to eternal damnation. 3 days later, Zhu Yi indeed stabilized her emotions. Yi Qinghan's fighting spirit was soaring. He smiled faintly and waved his hand. As if he was the king of the fire god mystery realm, he took Zhu Yi and all the 9th grade war gods and flew toward the fire god island. Chapter 12-14. Done. Good. Good. Inside the eternal palace, Xianxia had just received a message. He scanned it with his divine sense and immediately became excited. He pushed away the maids beside him and walked outside. Wuxia Wuya. Follow me to the Wind-Moon continent. Shinta Xiong's shout immediately startled Shinta Wuxia and Shinta Wuya, who were in the side chamber. They teleported over and saw Shinta Xiong's excited face. They hurriedly asked with joy, "Father, is there a joyous occasion?" "Ah, just follow me." Shinta Xiong did not say much and teleported with the two of them. The Eternal Palace disappeared from Supreme Island and the three of them teleported towards the north. Shinta Xiong's strength could be seen from the distance he teleported. In just 3 or 4 teleportations he appeared in the valley where the Wind-Moon Monarch was at. The Wind-Moon Monarch had already guessed that Shinta Xiong would come and was waiting respectfully outside. "Where is it?" Shinta Xiong's eyes were burning as he stared at the Wind-Moon Monarch. He thought it would take a few thousand years to build the city. He did not expect it to be completed in just 1,000 years. The Wind-Moon Monarch's face was also filled with excitement as he said to Shinta Xiong, "Lord, follow me." The few teleported to the back of the valley. There was a huge door on the wall. The Wind-Moon Monarch waved his god power and the door opened, revealing a bright passage. The few of them walked in. The passage became wider and wider until they reached a huge underground plaza. The walls around the plaza shone with light, making it look like daytime inside. A huge black bird-shaped strange divine tool was placed on the ground. The Wind-Moon Monarch pointed at the black bird and said, "I call this Flying Phoenix. I designed it based on the celestial bird. Its speed is 10 times faster than a celestial bird, comparable to a lower 9th grade war god, and it can fly in the sky. Of course, the prerequisite is that it needs a martial artist of the venerable rank and above to constantly inject origin energy. Without the infusion of origin energy, one hit by the space-shattering blade current will immediately turn it into ashes." "Alright. That's it. We summon 100 venerables. I want to give it a try immediately. If it is really as you say, Wind-Moon Monarch, this sovereign will greatly reward you." Shinta Xiong nodded his head. He was already very satisfied with this design. The most important thing was the energy supply. Only venerables were needed to fly in the void. What he was most afraid of was not having enough origin energy. If his origin energy was exhausted, then even if he was extremely powerful he would still die. In Shinta Xiong's eyes, a venerable was no different from an ordinary martial artist. In the Immortal realm 9th grade war gods were rare, but with so many martial artists, there would be someone breaking through to become a venerable every once in a while. Shinta Xiong wouldn't feel the slightest bit of heartache even if the quintessence energy of these 100 exalts were completely exhausted this time, or even if all of them died. Half a day later, 100 supremacies teleported over. Shinta Xiong immediately said to Elders Feng and Yu, "Keep this flying phoenix in your spatial artifact. Let's go to the endless void and test it out." Not long after, Shinta Xiong brought Shinta Wuya, Shinta Wuxia and 100 venerables to the endless void. Monarch Feng and Yu took out the metal lump bird from their spatial artifact. This flying phoenix was 100 meters long, and looked similar to a celestial phoenix. Under the control of Monarch Feng and Yu, its entire body emitted a green light. At its waist, a huge door opened like the mouth of a monster. Everyone entered the flying phoenix. It was very spacious inside and just like the celestial phoenix, it was divided into a front hall, a middle hall and a back hall. Monarch Feng and Yu brought 100 venerables to the back hall. Not long after, the flying phoenix's body trembled, and a faint origin energy slowly revolved around its body. It began to rapidly fly around the surface of the immortal realm. "Lord, this flying phoenix requires 10 venerables to control at the same time. 10 venerables will pour their origin energy into it. Based on the origin energy in an ordinary venerable's body, under normal circumstances, the origin energy of 10 venerables can fly for half a year. Of course, if they continuously encounter the space-shattering blade stream, they will lose too much origin energy so the time will be shorter." Monarch Feng and Yu proudly teleported over. They opened the restriction inside, allowing Shinta Xiong and his sons to see the endless void outside and began to explain. "Half a year. That's enough." A cold light flashed in Shinta Xiong's eyes and he said in a deep voice, "Fly around the immortal realm for a year, and encounter a few more space-shattering blade streams to test if there will be any problems." Monarch Feng's eyes flashed with a trace of dissatisfaction. This Shinta Xiong clearly did not believe him and was afraid that he would harm him. However, due to Shinta Xiong's strength, Monarch Feng did not dare to say anything, and obediently went to the back hall to control it. Wuxia thought of a question and asked, "Father, this divine tool that can cross the void is almost done. But how do we confirm the reincarnation plane that Yiqing and the rest are hiding in? Also, will they leave in advance? Return to the Flame Dragon continent or other planes?" Xianxia coldly snorted and said, "The Flame Dragon plane is impossible and the material planes are also impossible. The material planes are too small, and they are afraid that I will casually sacrifice a 9th-grade war god, and use my divine might to collapse the space of the material planes. As for the medium-sized planes, there are not many subsidiary medium-sized planes in the immortal realm. Once I get the plane map, where can they run to?" "Plane map? Father, where can I find a detailed plane map of the immortal realm?" Wuxia asked doubtfully. Xianxia stood up and his gaze passed through the phoenix, looking at the void in the distance, and said in a deep voice, "The Supreme Being Divine Emperor has it. You have forgotten, Father is now the Lord of the immortal realm. I have the right to go to Mount Pan and ask for the plane map of the immortal realm. Who else knows this plane better than the Supreme Being Divine Emperor?" The Supreme Being Divine Emperor. Wuxia and Wuxia were filled with deep veneration, and their gazes followed Xianxia, looking at the endless void, and their hearts were filled with longing. It was as if they could see the center of the plain battlefield, the lofty Mount Pan that stood above the countless plains and warriors. Grace City Yanran Little House. Monarch Yanran was wearing a light green dress, her graceful figure sitting cross-legged in front of the pavilion. Both of her hands were playing the zither, and her eyes were looking at the slowly flowing river in front of her. The lonely tinkling sound of the river blended perfectly with the desolate zither music, and the entire Yanran Little House was shrouded in a sorrowful atmosphere. Although the zither music was beautiful, Monarch Yanran was even more beautiful. However, on her oval face, her pearl-like eyes had a faint trace of sorrow, and her two thin eyebrows were slightly furrowed, which made people feel sorry for her. Clang! All of a sudden the zither music stopped. Monarch Yanran looked at the broken strings in her hands, and the worry on her face deepened. "Yiqing, why haven't you found Yanran yet? Don't you know that your situation is very dangerous?" Monarch Yanran sighed, mumbling softly. Her voice was so soft that it was incomparably pleasant to the ears. Monarch Yanran didn't know many of Xianxia's plans. In fact, even the South Mountain Monarch and Qing Shan, who were close to her, didn't know. However, Monarch Yanran knew that Xianxia was secretly planning to deal with Lord Devour and Yiqing. Moreover, she had a feeling that Xianxia was about to succeed. "Yiqing, if you die, Yanran can only submit to Wuxia. Wuxia has promised me that he will take revenge for me no matter who it is. Father, mother, no matter what, I will take revenge for you." A sorrowful sigh rang out in the room, causing the atmosphere in the room to become even more bleak and lonely. Chapter 12:15. The Fire God's Mystery Land was in chaos. Countless Emperor God martial artists flew towards the Fire God Island, ready to witness the final peak battle in the Fire God's Mystery Land. All the level 9 experts on Zhu Yi's side flew towards the Fire God Island without any scruples. Their purpose was self-evident. The powerful shield left by the level 9 supreme martial artist on the Fire God Island was still shining with a fiery red light, but it was much dimmer than it was 2,000 years ago. The people on the islands near the Fire God Island had long evacuated. They all knew that Zhu Yi would come to kill the Fire God clan patriarch sooner or later. There would definitely be a great battle here. By then, the aftermath of the battle could kill the ordinary martial artists on the island. An hour later, the vicinity of the Fire God Island was filled with countless Emperor God martial artists. They were all hiding in the sea and on the deserted island. They looked at the sky fervently, waiting for the arrival of Zhu Yi and the others. Not long after, 10 figures tore through the sky from afar and shot over violently. What shocked everyone was that the one at the front was not Zhu Yi. Instead, it was an unfamiliar man in a green robe. Who was he? Many questions popped up in everyone's mind. What shocked them even more was that this person was not from the Fire God clan, and his strength did not seem to be very strong. But why was Zhu Yi following behind the man like a subordinate? And the rest of the level 9 experts did not have any objections? Was the Fire God's Mystery Land going to change again? Yiqing ignored the countless martial artists below. He knew this world too well. Strength was everything and the strong were respected. Now that he controlled Zhu Yi, he was the strongest person in the Fire God's Mystery Land. If he wanted to, he could wipe out all the lives in the entire Fire God's Mystery Land. Let's do it. Looking at the Fire God Island below, Yi Qinghan's eyes were filled with coldness. Zhu Yi nodded and shouted, "Zhu Li, the three of you get ready to attack together. The rest of you, once the shield of the Fire God Island is broken, stand with Zhu Li immediately. I don't ask you to do anything, just protect yourselves together." Everyone nodded. Then the space power in the sky suddenly flowed. 2/3 of the space power in the entire Fire God Mystery Land surged towards the Fire God Island. 10 rank 9 martial artists began to condense spatial force at the same time. Low-level warriors could not feel the space power, but when 10 level 9 experts condensed the space power at the same time, the whole Fire Secret Realm was shrouded in an inexplicable pressure, as if a storm was about to pour down. Billions of people of the Fire God tribe in the Fire Secret Realm felt suffocated and their hearts palpitated. Attack! Zhu Yi let out a tender cry, and her spatial force transformed into 1,000 layers of waves that surged towards the Fire God Island. The 10 God Slayer spears around Yi Qinghan emitted a tyrannical aura that pierced through the sky as they pierced towards Fire God Island at the same time. The other 8 experts under level 9 also released their attacks at the same time. The powerful pressure made it feel like the sky was collapsing. The entire Fire God Island seemed to be trembling. Boom! Fire God Island really trembled. The whole Fire God Island shook, and the seawater on all sides suddenly set off huge waves that were thousands of meters high. Then they turned into terrifying tsunamis that surged in all directions. Countless fish and sea beasts at the bottom of the sea were flipped over and killed directly. An earth-shattering bang resounded through the entire Fire God's secret realm. The martial artists who were hiding around were all pressed down by this great power, and they could not move at all. The fiery red shield on the Fire God Island burst into a dazzling light at this moment, like the most dazzling demonic sun. At the same time, it released an inexplicable pressure that shook the nearby space, causing cracks to appear. However, this dazzling light only flashed for a moment and then it immediately weakened. The shield swayed as if it was about to explode. 8 of you attack again together. Zhu Yi and Yi Qinghan glanced at each other. Zhu Yi ordered the 8 martial arts practitioners below level 9. She and Yi Qinghan revolved their power of origin and condensed their power of space. They were prepared to work together to suppress Zhu Shui, the patriarch of the Fire God clan. Zhu Li and the other 7 people condensed the power of space again and smashed it against the shield. Then they immediately huddled together and used the power of origin to protect themselves. At the same time, Zhu Li and the other 2 launched their joint attack formation, raising their chi power to the upper level 9. The 8 of them prepared to join forces to protect themselves. Boom! The shield of the Fire God Island finally burst, revealing countless martial artists below in horror. However, the Fire God clan patriarch Zhu Shui was nowhere to be seen. Yi Qinghan fully opened up his divine consciousness. While guarding against the sneak attack of the people around Zhu Yi, he also searched for Zhu Shui's figure. There he is. Zhu Yi and Yi Qinghan immediately locked on to Zhu Shui's figure. On the top of a mountain peak on the Fire God Island, Zhu Shui's face was full of a hideous and insidious smile. He looked at the people in the air, and a diamond-shaped red gem in his hand was emitting a soul-stirring light. Heart of the Fire God. Kill. Yi Qinghan's eyes lit up. He locked on to Zhu Shui with the God Slayer's spear and shouted at Zhu Yi. Zhu Yi's 1,000-layer waves also smashed down. Haha, you want to kill me? Dream on. Zhu Shui laughed wildly, but his figure disappeared from the top of the mountain peak. The God Slayer's spear and 1,000-layer waves smashed down, completely erasing the entire mountain peak. The Fire God Island shook again. The martial artists on the island felt as if the end of the world had come, and they fled in all directions in fear. Zhu Shui, where can you escape to? The heart of the Fire God can only be used for 3 months at most. When the time comes, you won't be able to teleport anymore. Won't you still die? Zhu Yi shouted and disappeared from the top of the Fire God Island with Yi Qinghan at the same time, teleporting to the north. At this moment, Zhu Shui's figure was constantly teleporting to the north. The chase had begun. Zhu Shui was very clear that his strength was definitely not a match for Yi Qinghan and Zhu Yi's combined forces. Even the Grand Doyen had been instantly killed by Yi Qinghan and Zhu Yi. He was very clear that he was not stronger than the Grand Doyen. Therefore Zhou Xian did not stop and teleported all the way to the north. Yi Qinghan's divine sense had been locking on to Zhou Xian and then immediately releasing the soul extermination art. But the moment he locked on to Zhou Xian, he immediately teleported. He could only chase after Zhou Xian with Zhu Yi. After Zhou Xian teleported to the north, he did not stop and teleported to the east. You want to destroy my royal residence? Zhou Xian, you can try. Zhu Yi saw Zhou Xian teleporting all the way to the Fire King Island, and her face was filled with anger. If Zhou Xian crossed the Fire King Island and casually patted it, the great general royal residence would be razed to the ground. All the people in the residence would die. He won't destroy your royal residence. He wants to go to the teleportation array. You go to the teleportation array as fast as possible. Yi Qinghan guessed Zhou Xian's thoughts and transmitted his voice to Zhu Yi. Zhou Xian was very clear that he and Zhu Yi both had soul skills. Once they stopped, they would immediately be attacked. Of course, he would not foolishly do such a stupid thing just to vent his anger. He escaped from the north and turned to the east. His purpose was self-evident. He wanted to go to the teleportation array. As long as he teleported to the divine realm, it would be difficult for Yi Qinghan and Zhu Yi to kill him. Zhu Yi came to her senses and did not chase after Zhou Xian. She teleported straight in the direction of the teleportation array. She and Yi Qinghan both had the ability to fight with Zhou Xian. Once Zhou Xian chose to fight with one of them, as long as he could not kill the other instantly, he would be attacked by both of them. He would definitely die. Want to kill me? Follow me if you have the guts. Zhou Xian realized that his attempt had been discovered. His face became even more ferocious. This time he did not teleport to the east. Instead he teleported directly to the sky. He was actually trying to escape through the endless void. Haha, you brought this upon yourself. Yi Qinghan was stunned. Looking at Zhou Xian, who was constantly teleporting to the sky, he had the urge to hold his belly and laugh. Go to the endless void. Who else in this world was more unafraid of the endless void than him? Zhu Yi was also stunned. She shook her head and sneered. Perhaps even a 9th-grade supreme martial artist did not have as much source energy as Yi Qinghan, right? Zhou Xian wanted to perish together with Yi Qinghan in the endless void? What a great joke. Chapter 12:16. Outside the fire mystic realm, the Soul Emperor Pavilion was still flying around slowly. Yi Qingyu was controlling the Soul Emperor Pavilion. Yi Qinggu, Fireworks, Moon Queen and the Night Emperor were there. Xiao was the strongest and had experienced the most. Lord Devour had asked her to take charge. Yi Qinggu and the Night Emperor had recovered their composure. The women were sitting in the hall, chatting. The Night Emperor went to cultivate while Xiao was still standing by the hall, looking at the endless void. No one knew if she was thinking or cultivating. What? All of a sudden Xiao's eyes brightened. She was surprised, making a nasal sound. Yi Qinggu, Fireworks and the others in the hall were startled. They all turned to look at her. Xiaoyu, fly at full speed. Get out of here first. Xiao shouted. Yi Qingyu was bewildered. She didn't hesitate, controlling the Soul Emperor Pavilion to fly at full speed. Everybody was startled. They released their divine consciousness and looked at Xiao, waiting for her explanation. Look, someone is coming out of the fire mystic realm. He's at least at level 9. Xiao pointed at a place far away, her face solemn. Everybody turned to look and saw a fiery red figure with the power of the origin. He got out of the fire mystic realm and flew away. Look, that's... All of a sudden 2 more figures appeared where the fiery red figure had come from. One of them was a green figure with a cold face. He was flying fast in the void, dashing toward the fiery red figure. Little Han. It's Little Han. The green robe, the familiar weak figure and the familiar handsome face. Everybody shivered. Then they were thrilled. Yi Qinggu and the others were so excited that they had tears in their eyes. They had waited for more than 2,000 years. They had been worried for more than 2,000 years. Today he finally appeared. Yi Qinghan had come out. Go after him. Xiao shouted. Yi Qingyu hurried to wipe the tears from the corners of her eyes. She controlled the Soul Emperor Pavilion to turn into a shooting star, flying toward Yi Qinghan's group. Soul Emperor Pavilion. Although Yi Qinghan's body was shooting towards Zhou Xian, His divine sense was wide open and he discovered the rapidly approaching Soul Emperor Pavilion. He was overjoyed and quickly transmitted a message. Zhu, don't resist. Follow me into the Soul Emperor Pavilion. Zhu also noticed the strange pagoda. Her soul flame was controlled by Yi Qinghan. She did not dare to resist and nodded obediently. Yi Qinghan's spiritual sense locked onto the Soul Emperor Pavilion. Yi Qingyu felt it and immediately opened the barrier, allowing Yi Qinghan's spiritual sense to seep in. Little Yu, pull the two of us in and bring us to the first floor of the Soul Emperor Pavilion. Although Yi Qinghan was skeptical as to why it wasn't Lord Devour controlling the Soul Emperor Pavilion, he didn't think much about it. He asked Yi Qingyu to transport them to the first floor of the Soul Emperor Pavilion. Then he told Zhu something and teleported them to the 9th floor. Bulhan, brother. Qinghan. As soon as he reached the 9th floor, 3 fiery figures pounced on him, all of them crying in a daze. Yi Qinghan was so happy as he hugged them. After a while he pulled himself together and shouted, "Don't talk. Little Yu, control the Soul Emperor Pavilion at full speed. Catch up with that man. He has the fire god's heart." Seeing Yi Qinghan's stern face, they didn't dare to say more. The Soul Emperor Pavilion flew at its maximum speed, which could be compared to Zhu Xue's. Zhu Xue also found this strange pagoda. She was surprised to see Yi Qinghan and Zhu disappear into the pagoda. However, what could she do at this moment? She could only grit her teeth and fly towards the divine world. The space-shattering saber flows that filled the sky howled and smashed into Zhu Xue's body. As metal clanged, countless strands of origin energy drifted far away with the space-shattering saber flows. Zhu Xue, hand over the fire god's heart and I'll spare your life. Yi Qinghan's voice was amplified by the Soul Emperor Pavilion's spells, echoing through the endless void. Zhu Xue turned her head, a ferocious smile on her face. She angrily shouted, "How can the Fire God clan's treasure fall into the hands of outsiders? Zhu, you despicable slut, you dare to ally with outsiders to deal with your clansmen? If you fall into my hands, I'll make you beg for death." At this time, the Soul Emperor Pavilion wasn't too far from Zhu Xue. In addition, Yi Qinghan's voice was muffled. Zhu heard Zhu Xue's curses and her face filled with anger. She remembered. She was once ridden by Yi Qinghan. She immediately felt ashamed. She spread out her divine sense and locked onto Yi Qinghan's figure. She sent a sound transmission, "Let me out, I want to tear this bastard apart." "No rush. Let him consume some of his source strength. I'll teleport you out in a bit." Yi Qinghan coldly sent a sound transmission and continued to have Yi Qingyu chase after Zhu Xue. His divine sense locked onto Zhu Xue, not saying a word to anyone else. The Soul Emperor Pavilion and Zhu Xue's speed was about the same, but the Soul Emperor Pavilion was a bit larger. Just now, the Soul Emperor Pavilion had used the space-shattering saber current to attack, so its speed was a bit slower. The distance between Zhu Xue and it had increased to hundreds of thousands of miles. One person and one pagoda turned into 2 meteors streaking across the void. Their speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, they had crossed millions of miles. The fire god mystic realm wasn't too far from the divine world. But with Zhu Xue and the Soul Emperor Pavilion's speed, it would take at least 3 to 5 months. And Zhu Xue's source strength absolutely couldn't last that long. Half a month later, Zhu Xue's body suddenly stopped in midair. She no longer flew. Instead, she turned around, holding the fire god's heart in one hand. She grinned and shouted, "Stop. If you dare to chase, no one will get the fire god's heart. Will you stop? Send me and that woman from the first floor out." Yi Qinghan's eyes were dignified and worried. Zhu had said that the fire god's heart was as hard as a transcendent-grade divine artifact. It absolutely couldn't be crushed. But at this time where Zhu Xue was standing, there was a spatial whirlpool nearby. If Zhu Xue threw the fire god's heart into the spatial whirlpool, then all their efforts of thousands of years would be wasted. "Zhu Xue, what do you want?" Yi Qinghan and Zhu teleported out and had the Soul Emperor Pavilion retreat. The two of them didn't dare to move recklessly. At this time they were 100,000 miles away from Zhu Xue. Although soul skills could be used to attack, if Zhu Xue were to immediately throw the fire god's heart into the spatial whirlpool, then the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. "What do I want?" kill this cheap woman and make a divine emperor blood oath to let me go. Then the fire god's heart will be yours. Zhu Xian fiendishly grinned as he looked at Zhu Yi. His eyes were filled with madness. He didn't have much source strength left. If this continued, he would die sooner or later. He could only give it his all. Zhu Yi's complexion changed. She subconsciously glanced at Yi Qinghan. If Yi Qinghan wanted to kill her, then she really couldn't resist. Although Yi Qinghan had made a divine emperor blood oath, this sort of oath didn't seem very reliable. Humph! How could Yi Qinghan not understand that this was Zhu Xian's plan to drive a wedge between them? Moreover, he had made a divine emperor blood oath that he wouldn't kill Zhu Yi. He was afraid that a bolt of divine thunder would fall from the void and destroy him. It had to be known that this world really did have divine emperors. Yi Qinghan felt a headache coming on. He didn't know if he should advance or retreat. If the fire god's heart was thrown into the spatial whirlpool, he would definitely be angered to the point of vomiting blood. For a moment, the three of them were in a deadlock. At this time, Yi Qinghan suddenly felt the restrictions of the Battle Emperor Palace move. He hurriedly sent a strand of his divine sense in. Suddenly, his mind jolted as an illusory figure emerged from the slaughter god blade and stood in the main hall. Xiao He had woken up. Chapter 12:17. Yi Qinghan's expression didn't change, as if he was troubled and thinking about the pros and cons. But in his mind he was communicating with Xiao He in the War Imperial Palace. After a while, Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed with joy. He raised his head and pretended to have an answer. He used his divine power and said loudly, Zhu Xian, I have an agreement with Zhu Yi. I won't kill her. Plus she's stronger than me, so I can't kill her. Change the conditions. For example, we can both make a divine emperor blood oath to protect you and send you to the divine realm. How about that? No. Zhu Xian shook his head and looked at Zhu Yi with hatred. I don't trust her. This woman is full of tricks. I won't feel at ease if I don't kill her. There's no room for discussion. I'd rather die together with her. Zhu Yi shouted angrily, Zhu Xian, do you believe that we don't want the fire god's heart? If you don't come to your senses, you'll be dead. Without the fire god armor, what's the use of the fire god's heart? Zhu Xian laughed and said, Beastman, if you don't have the fire god armor, why would you enter the fire god's secret realm? You can't kill Zhu Yi? Who are you kidding? You're not stronger than Zhu Yi. Why would this bitch listen to you? Stop talking nonsense. If you don't do it, I'll throw the fire god's heart into the spatial whirlpool. Zhu Xian's mouth was cold. The fire god's heart in his hand shone brightly. He raised his hand high as if he was going to throw the fire god's heart into the spatial whirlpool. He wasn't stupid. He could see that Zhu Yi was completely obedient to Yi Qinghan's orders. He thought that Yi Qinghan was hiding his true strength and was a 9th-grade supreme martial artist. Zhu Yi collaborated with outsiders to kill the Grand Doyen. Now she wanted to kill him. Zhu Xian, who had the purest bloodline of the fire god tribe, was furious. Yi Qinghan glanced at the space around Zhu Xian and revealed a cruel smile. He turned to Zhu Yi and said shamefully, Zhu Yi, I'm sorry. 10 God Slayer's spears appeared and locked onto Zhu Yi. Zhu Yi's expression changed greatly. She didn't understand. If Yi Qinghan wanted to deal with her, all he had to do was crush her soul fire and she would die immediately. Why would he do this? Did he do it? Who would have thought? The 10 God Slayer's spears did not shoot towards Zhu Yi. Instead they turned and shot towards Zhu Xian. Zhu Yi came to her senses and immediately activated her soul skill. At the same time, her spatial power condensed into 1,000 layered waves that surged toward Zhu Xian. Humph! You want to kill me? The heart of the fire god. No one can even think about getting it. Zhu Xian suddenly felt billions of golden soul threads crazily rushing into his sea of consciousness. How could he not know that Yi Qinghan had made his move? Zhu Xian immediately made up his mind. He no longer cared about his soul sea. His hand shook with divine power, and the fire god's heart emitted a magnificent fiery red light. He threw it towards the space whirlpool next to him. Even if you don't want it, I, Lord Xiao He, want it. La la la. Just as the fire god's heart was about to be thrown into the space whirlpool, a figure suddenly condensed outside the space whirlpool. It was a small beast. It grabbed the fire god's heart and shot far away. It immediately escaped. What kind of monster is this? Zhu Xian was shocked. However, countless golden soul threads had already entered his soul sea, and his soul was already in a mess. Then, under his terrified gaze, the 10 God Slayers' spears struck his body like 10 bolts of lightning. The 9 God Slayers' spears revolved at the same time and pierced through his origin energy. 9 holes appeared in his body. The God Slayer's spear that did not revolve struck his head and shattered his chaotic soul sea. Zhu Yi, stop your attack. Yi Qinghan shouted. When his God Slayer's spear approached the origin energy outside Zhu Shueishui's body, he knew that Zhu Shueishui would definitely die. He deliberately controlled the God Slayer's spear to not shatter his divine crystal. This was a pseudo-chaotic divine crystal which could be used to create fake level 9 experts. Of course, he could not let Zhu Yi shatter it at this moment. Zhu Yi hurriedly withdrew her space power. However, she looked at the small beast that was flying towards her from afar in astonishment. What kind of monster was this? It actually moved stealthily in the hollow. She and Zhu Shueishui had not noticed it. Moreover, she felt that the strength of this small beast was very strong. Yi Qinghan grabbed Zhu Shueishui's divine crystal and flew towards Xiao He while laughing. He took the fire god's heart from Xiao He and looked at Xiao He excitedly. His eyes were filled with love and gratitude. Xiao He had evolved again. Zhu Yi's exact strength was not clear, but she had just transmitted a message to Yi Qinghan. After his evolution, he had obtained a very abnormal ability. He could hide his body in the chi of heaven and earth. A devil monarch could hide his body in the demonic aura. As long as his body was not exposed, he could never be killed by a level 9 supreme martial artist. Xiao He was even more abnormal now. As long as there was chi of heaven and earth, he could hide. As long as he did not expose himself, even a level 9 supreme martial artist might not be able to find him. Swish. The Soul Emperor Pavilion flew over immediately when it saw that the battle had ended. Yi Qinghan was full of smiles. He said to Zhu Yi, whose eyes were flickering with worry, "Don't worry. I will definitely keep my promise. Enter the Soul Emperor Pavilion. I will send you back to the Fire Mystic Realm." Zhu Yi looked at Yi Qinghan's sincere eyes and felt slightly relieved. However, the expression in her eyes became even more complicated. This man had too many secrets. Not to mention that strange small beast, just this strange Soul Emperor Pavilion, was enough to surprise her. She did not lose unjustly. Flashing into the Soul Emperor Pavilion, Yi Qinghan was surrounded by everyone in the Great Hall. Zhu Yi was still arranged to be on the first floor. Zhu Yi was very powerful, and even though Yi Qinghan was holding on to her fire of the soul, he still had to guard against her. If Zhu Yi were to attack fireworks and the others, he would be in deep trouble. After obtaining the fire god's heart, Yi Qinghan was completely relieved. Under everyone's expectant gaze, he took out the fire god's heart and the fire god battle armor. He placed the fire god's heart into the diamond-shaped gap on the fire god helmet. Buzz. A soft red light lit up. Following that, the entire fire god battle armor automatically floated in the Great Hall. A suffocating aura was released from the fire god battle armor. Yi Qinggu and the others did not dare to breathe. The fire god battle armor had finally been activated. Yi Qinghan looked at the beautiful battle armor floating in the air. He watched as the fire god battle armor released a magnificent light. The countless fire dragons on it slowly swam. The entire battle armor was brimming with a domineering, mysterious, and ancient aura. His heart was burning. This was a supreme spiritual treasure. And it was ranked number 1 in the divine realm. At this moment, it finally belonged to him. Come. Yi Qinghan's divine sense locked onto the fire god battle armor. The fire god battle armor seemed to hear his summons. It flew towards him and finally disappeared into Yi Qinghan's body. Yi Qinghan's mind moved. The fire god battle armor immediately appeared outside his body. It tightly wrapped around his body as if it had become a part of him. The domineering aura and the faint light made Yi Qinghan look even more domineering and mighty. It was as if an ancient god of war had descended, insufferably arrogant. I wonder if the defense of this battle armor is as strong as the rumors say. Yi Qinghan reached out his hand to caress the fire god battle armor as if he was caressing his most beloved woman. All of a sudden, his brows arched as if he recalled something. He said suspiciously, "Right? Why didn't Lord Devour come with us? If she were here, we could attack to test its defense." Lord. Everybody's faces darkened. Yi Qinggu and Yi Qingyu's eyes reddened, tears rolling down their cheeks. Half a month ago, because they didn't want to disturb Yi Qinghan, they chose to keep quiet. But now they had to tell Yi Qinghan about the destruction of Tsang City. Mother Astersker. Xianxia, this young master will destroy your entire family. But. A moment later, an earth-shattering roar came from the Soul Emperor Pavilion. The voice was full of grief and indignation. Even Zhu Yi, who was on the first floor of the Soul Emperor Pavilion, was frightened. Chapter 12:18. Just as Yi Qinghan exited the Fire God realm and killed the Fire God race's Zhu Shui. In the endless space outside the God realm, over 100 martial artists suddenly appeared. The martial artists that could stand in the endless space were at least at the Venerable realm. There were indeed 100 Venerables, and of course there were a few 9th grade war gods. Wuxia. When I am not here, you definitely cannot leave the Eternal Hall. Qingshan, protect Wuxian. If Yi Qinghan appears, you can only send one person to chase after him. There must be one person guarding the Eternal Hall. As long as you are guarding Yi Tianlong, Yi Qinghan won't be able to do anything. Do you understand? A suppressive voice rang out. This person had a head full of golden hair, an aquiline nose, a square head and big ears. Xianxia didn't release any aura, and his voice was extremely calm. However, there was an aura that suppressed everyone present so much that they didn't dare to breathe. Yes, father. We will follow your orders. The evil-looking Shintu Wuxia and the wooden Shintu Wuya replied respectfully. Yes, sir. Qingshan and Ice Queen nodded. Only then did Xianxia retract his gaze in satisfaction. He turned around and looked at South Mountain Sovereign Ing Kuei and Wind Moon Sovereign. Let's go. Wind Moon Sovereign didn't waste any time. He waved his hand and a giant metal ball appeared in the air. 100 Venerables entered it. Finally, Xianxia, Wind Moon Sovereign and Ing Kuei entered too. Flying Phoenix's body shook and a green light lit up on its surface. Then it was covered by a pure white source energy. With a xiao, Flying Phoenix flew through the air and disappeared from everyone's sight. Let's go back. The moment Xianxia left, Shintu Wuxia became excited. She waved her hands towards everyone and led the way towards the weakest space in the God realm. Shintu Wuya followed closely behind. Qingshan and Ice Queen looked at one another and followed the two of them helplessly. Xianxia's strength was too strong, so strong that the two of them could not resist. So strong that the two of them, who were at the peak of level 9, could only obediently become the bodyguards of the Shintu young master. After returning to the divine world, the four of them directly flew towards the Eternal Palace. Xianxia did not bring the Eternal Palace with him, but left it behind to protect Shintu Wuya and Shintu Wuxia. Of course, the most important reason was to lure Yi Qinghan to rescue Yi Tianlong and the others. Before leaving, Xianxia taught Shintu Wuxia and Shintu Wuya how to control the Eternal Palace. If Yi Qinghan rashly came to save them, unless his strength had reached the 9th grade Supreme Martial Artist level, he would definitely die. With the suppression of the Eternal Palace, Yi Qinghan couldn't run even if he wanted to. He could only become a live target and be beaten to death. Queen, where's the present you said you were going to give us, brothers? The moment she entered the Eternal Hall, Shintu Wuxia was pumped up. She stared at Ice Queen like she wanted to melt her. Young Master Wuxia, the people of the Ice Snow race are arrogant. Please don't humiliate them. Ice Queen was originally ice cold. When she saw the lustful glow in Shintu Wuxia's eyes, her body turned even colder. Seeing that Ice Queen finally agreed, Shintu Wuxia was delighted. Hey Queen, don't worry, Wuxia loves them. Shintu Wuya, who was a little slow, was filled with excitement when he heard that Ice Queen was willing to give them ice snow girls. He rubbed his hands and his neck turned red. Qingshan saw all of this and sighed. No wonder Xianxia liked Shintu Wuhan, who was killed by Yi Qinghan. One of them was lustful and the other was slow. They were far from comparable to Shintu Wuhan. Half a day later, 4 ice snow girls teleported over after receiving Ice Queen's message. They were all honorables and all of them were top beauties. Seeing how Shintu Wuxia and Shintu Wuya's blood was boiling, Qingshan and Ice Queen exchanged glances with one another. The two of them flashed to the side hall and closed their eyes to cultivate. Queen, be careful. I think Shintu Wuxia has that kind of feelings for you, Qingshan glanced at the ashen-faced Ice Queen and reminded her. If he dares, I will rip him apart, scoff. Ice Queen scoffed coldly. She didn't open her eyes, but her expression became more and more impatient. Of course, she knew that Wuxia's brain was filled with lust. When he looked at her, his gaze was filled with possessiveness. She was also clear that if her strength wasn't peak grade 9, Wuxia would think of a way to get her. Xian smiled. He doesn't dare. However, that brat Yanran, I think she, scoff. Xiong is a hero, so how did he give birth to two idiots? Wuhan is not bad, unfortunately he was killed by Yi Qinghan. Qingshan said a few words. Seeing that Ice Queen didn't reply to him, he shut his mouth in embarrassment. His eyes swept towards Ice Queen and he sighed. Such a top beauty, so strong along with her cold aura, no wonder Wuxia was tempted. Men were just despicable. The harder it was to get, the more they wanted it. Qingshan. Follow me out. Half a month later, Qingshan, who was in secluded meditation, was woken up by a voice transmission. Hearing that it was Wuxia's voice, Qingshan sighed helplessly and walked out. Young master, sir told you not to go out. He walked out and saw Wuxia sitting impatiently in the hall. His eyes were filled with passion as he said, Young master, Ice Queen isn't fun? Why are you going out? What fun? She's cold like a dead person and doesn't know how to suck up to people. Only that blockhead Wuya likes her. Wuxia said unhappily. Then she thought of something and her eyes instantly lit up. Let's go. Accompany me to the Grace mainland. When I think of Miss Yanran's peerless charm, I can't sit still for a moment. Young master, let's wait for sir to come back. If something happens to you, I won't be able to bear the responsibility. Qingshan acted like he was in a tough spot, but in his heart he was laughing coldly. Aren't you here? What can happen? Wuxia said unhappily. Wait for Xiong to come back? What would he do when he came back? Although King Yanran was only lower grade 9, how many grade 9 experts did the God world have? If it was like ancient times, not to mention a lower grade 9, even if it was Ice Queen level, he would still be able to play with her. But there were just too few grade 9 experts in the God world. If Xiong was here and King Yanran messed around, Xiong would definitely slap him away. The God world had reached its weakest period in history. There were very few grade 9 experts. If they lost the planar war and other planes attacked the God world would definitely be conquered and enslaved. Otherwise, with Xiong's temper, why would he let Imo Shanghuang and other lower grade 9 experts who were close to Yi Qinghan live? Therefore, Wuxia was very clear that if he wanted to get his hands on Yanran, it was the best chance for Xiong to go to the endless void. Yi Qinghan's methods are strange. Although I am not afraid of him, if he hurts young master and sir comes back, I will not be able to escape the blame. Qingshan said faintly after losing his appetite. A cold light flashed in Wuxia's eyes. He waved his hand and said, Humph, now that father has gone to attack his nest, Yi Qinghan still has the mood to come to the God world? Besides, he hasn't appeared for more than 2,000 years, he might be cultivating in seclusion or something. Even if he appears with your peak grade 9 strength, you can't kill him, but protecting me shouldn't be a problem, right? Qingshan, as long as you help me get King Yanran this time, I will owe you a huge favor. If anything happens, I will take responsibility for father. Qingshan's eyes flashed with the light of his plan succeeding, but he pretended to be reluctant and said, okay. Wuxia's spirit was lifted. He quickly sent a message to Ice Queen, then flew out of the Eternal Palace with Qingshan and teleported towards Grace mainland. Chapter 12:19. Zhu Yi, attack me with 3 layers of space power. In the endless void, 2 figures stood proudly in the void. The one on the left was a woman wearing a beige dress. She had an enchanting figure and beautiful facial features. Her expression involuntarily exuded the temperament of a noble queen. She was tempting to commit crimes, but at the same time she made people feel that they should not be profaned. It was extremely contradictory. In front of her was a black-haired man. He wasn't tall or mighty and was rather frail. However, he was wearing a fiery red armor, and his entire body was enveloped in a faint glow. There was a magnificent gem on his forehead, and it gave off a heart-palpitating aura. It made people feel as if he was an ancient god of war who had descended, insufferably arrogant. Zhu Yi's hands danced and the surrounding spatial energy swept towards her. She then pushed her hands forward, and as the ripples in front of her chest surged, formless waves rapidly surged towards Yi Qinghan. One after another they instantly formed 1,000 layers of waves. Like a tsunami, they enveloped Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's power of origin surrounded the armor. He stood proudly, his eyes cold. He used his body to resist the huge energy attack that was enough to flatten a mountain. Boom! A deafening sound and a light as bright as the sun rang out at the same time. At the same time, Yi Qinghan's eyes also lit up. An energy that was equal to a full blow from a lower level 9 martial artist hit him, and he actually did not retreat even half a step. It is indeed the first supreme spiritual treasure in the divinity realm. Zhu Yi attack with 6 layers of space power. Yi Qinghan shouted. His chi power became stronger and his eyes shone with a cold light, looking majestic. Be careful. A trace of sadness flashed in Zhu Yi's eyes. Of course, she knew the abnormal defensive power of this fire god armor. She once had a chance to obtain this fire god armor, but one wrong step led to many wrong steps. At this moment she had fallen to the point of becoming someone's sole slave. The 6 layers of space power turned into stormy waves and covered Yi Qinghan. Except for a loud sound and a dazzling flame, when the waves dissipated, Yi Qinghan's body was still standing in the same place, not retreating even half a step. Attack with all your might. The light in Yi Qinghan's eyes grew brighter. Zhu Yi did not hold back anymore. Peak rank 9 was about strength. How powerful would a full force attack be? At this moment it was clearly manifested. Along with the formless and silent 1,000-layer wave, the space shook layer by layer and was torn apart layer by layer. White scar-like cracks appeared in the void. It was a ghastly sight. The 1,000-layer waves carried a destructive aura as it surged towards Yi Qinghan. At this moment Yi Qinghan's heart palpitated and he almost teleported away. This thing was much more powerful than the spatial shattering blade stream, and its might would definitely be countless times greater. He did not expect to be attacked head-on by a peak rank 9 martial artist with such a shocking momentum. It felt as if the sky was falling and the earth was splitting apart, as if doomsday had arrived. In the end, Yi Qinghan chose to believe in the fire god armor. It was just that the origin energy on the surface of his body, the origin energy that protected his divine crystal and head, had increased slightly. Boom! Yi Qinghan's figure finally flew backward, accompanied by the turbulent 1,000-layer waves, shooting into the distance. But in the blink of an eye, his figure disappeared. In the next second, he teleported back to his original position. He was not injured at all, just a slight stuffiness. As expected of the divine realm's #1 supreme spirit treasure. Good stuff. Yi Qinghan stroked the fiery red armor on his body. Looking at the fire dragons swimming around the armor, his face suddenly lit up with pride. Although he was not sure if this thing could withstand dozens of attacks from a rank 9 supreme martial artist without dying, he knew that as long as this armor was here, a peak rank 9 would not be able to hurt him at all. Swoosh! The Soul Emperor Pavilion floated over from afar. Yi Qinghan and Zhu Yi disappeared from the Soul Emperor Pavilion. Full speed ahead. Go to the Fire God's arcane realm first and send Zhu Yi back. Yi Qinghan immediately ordered after teleporting from the 1st floor of the Soul Emperor Pavilion to the 9th floor. Yi Qingyu was very familiar with the surroundings. She immediately controlled the Soul Emperor Pavilion and flew quickly. Little Han, this armor is so strong. The Night Emperor looked at Yi Qinghan, the dim light in his eyes brightening. The stronger Yi Qinghan was, the greater the chance of revenge. Everyone's eyes also brightened. At least Yi Qinghan's chance of survival was higher. As long as he was alive, there was hope. Yi Qinghan secretly smiled bitterly. As long as he was alive, there was indeed hope. But he was very clear that there was a bomb in his mind, a bomb that could blow him up at any time. And this bomb would definitely explode in 500 years. He had to kill Shen Xiong in 500 years. He had to obtain the secret possession technique, help Xiao He transform and let everyone return to the divine realm. Yi Qinghan's gaze fell on Xiao He, who was looking at him worriedly. Xiao He had evolved, his strength had increased greatly, and his mystical abilities had become more and more strange. But he was very clear about Yi Qinghan's current mood. He was not as playful as he was in the past. He transformed into his human form and stood silently with Li Shui. Because of Yi Qinghan's silence, the atmosphere in the hall became awkward and oppressive. No one spoke. They sat silently and looked at the endless void outside. The massacre of Tsang City was a huge blow to Yi Qinghan. When Yi Qinghan heard the news, he only roared angrily. After that he did not mention this matter again. He also became even less talkative. Fireworks wanted to say a few words of comfort, but in the end she did not speak. The Soul Emperor Pavilion flew silently, like a ghost in the void. This time they flew in a straight line. In just half a month, they arrived outside the fire god's arcane realm. Zhu Yi, you are free. A soul fire emerged from between Yi Qinghan's eyebrows and entered between Zhu Yi's eyebrows. Then he forced a smile and said, I had no choice but to violate you. I'm sorry. If your strength improves in the future and you want to find me for revenge, I welcome you at any time. But I may not live to that day. Goodbye, let's meet again if fate wills it. Yi Qinghan looked deeply at Zhu Yi. The hatred he had for her in the past had disappeared without a trace after she violated him. Now he felt a little guilty. Originally they were enemies. You wanted to kill me, I wanted to kill you. It was understandable that they used all kinds of methods. But no matter what, Zhu Yi was a woman. In Yi Qinghan's eyes, women were weak. And not only was she defeated by him, but she was also violated. Zhu Yi watched as Yi Qinghan's figure rapidly flew towards the Soul Emperor Pavilion. Her ears were still echoing with Yi Qinghan's sincere words. For a moment, her beautiful eyes were filled with all kinds of complex emotions. Resentment, unwillingness, relief, or something else. But she watched as the Soul Emperor Pavilion turned into a meteor and floated away. After disappearing from her sight, Zhu Yi's heart suddenly surged with an indescribable sense of emptiness. It was as if Yi Qinghan had finished venting and pulled the artifact out of her body that day. After a long time, Zhu Yi faintly sighed and turned to enter the fire god's mystic realm. She knew that it would be difficult for her to forget this man for the rest of her life. Brother, where are we going now? Back? To the Flame Dragon continent? After Yi Qinghan returned to the Soul Emperor Pavilion, he kept looking at Zhu Yi. Everyone knew that the relationship between the two wasn't ordinary. But Yi Qinghan didn't say anything and no one asked. In the end, Yi Qingyu cautiously asked. Yi Qinghan shook his head, turned around and pointed at the huge bright moon-like plain in the distance. His entire body was bursting with killing intent, causing everyone to feel a chill in the depths of their souls. Then an even colder sentence came out of Yi Qinghan's mouth. Flame Dragon Continent. I have no face to return now. To the God Realm. Xianxia killed my Yi family's disciples and massacred my Tsong city. I will kill his 2 sons, carry his son's head and offer it to our Yi family's disciples. Chapter 12:20. Gray City. Yanran's little building was still as beautiful as before. The sky above the building was still shrouded by a faint sorrowful aura, which made the beautiful scenery seem to be covered by a layer of gray fog. Pai Lady. Go to the endless void and find Child Yi. It will be too late if you don't leave now. In front of the building, Lord Yanran was still playing the zither calmly. However, the sound of the zither was not as melodious as before. Instead, it sounded messy and unpleasant. Yanran wore a bright yellow dress and sat cross-legged on the carpet in front of the building. In front of her, 2 women knelt down and looked at the calm Lord Yanran anxiously. Clang. After a while, the sound of the zither came to an abrupt end as a string broke. Monarch Yanran stared at the broken string in a daze. After a long time she sighed faintly and said, What will you do now that I'm gone? What about the revenge of my parents? What about the millions of people in Gray City? Besides, I don't know where Yi Qinghan is. Where can I find him? One of the 2 kneeling women was wearing a white dress. Seeing the desolate and confused look on Lady Yanran's face, she became more anxious and said hurriedly, My lady, you should go to a secret territory and hide for a while. The other woman also said anxiously, Yes. My lady, I think Xianxia has already found out that you are from the Black Phoenix clan. He must have encouraged Wuxia to take your body. You should leave now. Tomorrow is the last day of the 3 months. No need to guess. That's for sure. I used to fantasize about giving myself to Wuxia so that he could ask Xianxia to kill Xianxia. How childish. How laughable. Yanran shook her head helplessly. Her face was full of self-mockery. The desolate look on her face was heart-wrenching. She stretched out her white hand and plucked the strings of the zither. She sighed and said, You should leave now. I can't. Wuxia has locked onto me. They're coming. What? The 2 women's expressions changed dramatically. Both of them were from the Black Phoenix clan, but their bloodline was not as pure as Lord Yanran's. They didn't have her talent either. They could clearly see the determination on Yanran's face. If Yanran died, the Black Phoenix clan would never be able to take revenge. Go. Monarch Yanran's voice became extremely cold and firm. The two women didn't move at all. The woman in white smiled sadly and said, "Since that's the case, let Yanhong and Yanlu go with Miss." Buzz. At this moment, space trembled, and an incomparably evil youth and a tall, burly man who looked like a demon god appeared outside the pavilion. The evil-looking man bowed elegantly, and the smile on his face was enough to move a girl's heart. "Miss Yanran, have you thought it through? Wuxia is willing to protect Miss forever." Monarch Yanran stood up gracefully and waved her hand for the two women to stand behind her. She then looked at Shinto Wuxia and said lightly, "Mr. Wuxia, Yanran would like to speak with you in private." Shinto Wuxia was overjoyed and she was just about to agree when Xianxia spoke first. "I'm sorry, the Lord has ordered that I'm not allowed to take half a step away from young master." Shinto Wuxia was startled. He immediately recalled that Yanran was much stronger than him and did not speak. Shinto Xiong was not here, and if he was killed it would be in vain. Monarch Yanran laughed mockingly and looked at Shinto Wuxia indifferently. "Mr. Wuxia, is this all you've got? When you sleep with Yanran, do you want Xianxia to be by your side to protect you?" Shinto Wuxia was embarrassed. It was not a good feeling to be despised, and to be despised by a goddess that he dreamed of, it almost drove him crazy. "Young master, you can invite her to the Eternal Palace. Your safety is guaranteed there." Just as Shinto Wuxia ordered Xianxia to leave, Xianxia's voice came. Shinto Wuxia was overjoyed and he quickly said, "Miss, please follow me back to the Eternal Palace. As long as we reach the Eternal Palace, no matter what you want, I can promise you anything. Shinto Wuxia swears that if I betray Miss Yanran in this life, I will be punished by the Supreme God Emperor, and I will be killed and I will fall into the 9 hells forever." Yanran looked at the cold sneer on Xianxia's face, and she knew that her plan had been seen through. She sighed helplessly and leisurely walked towards the pavilion and said coldly, "Mister, please go back. You can't even satisfy a small request of mine. How can I believe your words?" Shinto Wuxia was provoked and his face darkened. He turned to Xianxia and said coldly, "Xianxia, you leave first." Xianxia cursed inwardly, but he had no choice but to teleport away. He did not teleport too far, but hid in a mountain range in the Grace mainland, and used his divine sense to explore. If Shinto Wuxia was killed, although Shinto Xiong would not kill him, the trust he had built with Shinto Xiong would immediately collapse. "Miss Yanran, do you believe Wuxia's sincerity now?" Shinto Wuxia's face recovered instantly. His handsome face, evil smile, and the fact that he was the strongest person in the god realm, he indeed had the ability to make women fall in love. "You go first, I will have a chat with Mr. Wuxia." Monarch Yanran smiled faintly and turned to Yan Hong and the other two girls. The two women took a deep look at Yanran and left in dejection. "Miss Yanran." Shinto Wuxia took a few steps forward and held Yanran's small hand. He stared at Yanran with a face full of love and said softly, "Wuxia has missed you so much. Take off your clothes. After you are done, do one thing for me, and if you can't do it, Yanran will not let you go even if I go to the underworld." However, Miss Yanran gently withdrew her hand, and then said something that made Shinto Wuxia's blood boil. Then his eyes suddenly widened. He saw Monarch Yanran slowly unbuttoning her shirt, revealing a snow-white skin that could make any man in the world suffocate. Xiao. Just as Shinto Wuxia was like a bull in heat, tearing apart the clothes on her body, Miss Yanran suddenly stopped taking off her clothes. Her pair of limpid eyes suddenly lit up, and then Shinto Wuxia's eyes suddenly became blank. Monarch Yanran activated her soul skill, and directly stunned the defenseless Shinto Wuxia. "How dare you? Yanran, if you dare to touch Lord Wuxia, I will make sure you die without a complete corpse." An angry roar sounded, and a demonic figure appeared out of thin air above Yanran's little building. Xianxia's face was cold, and his killing intent soared into the sky, enveloping the entire building. He held a black spear in his hand, and it released a suffocating aura. "Haha, Xianxia, you dog! Shinto Wuxia was killed under your protection. Now that Shinto Wuxia is back, let's see how you explain yourself. Even if I can't kill you, I will make your life miserable." Monarch Yanran sneered. She grabbed Shinto Wuxia's head with one hand and his waist with the other. Her target was Shinto Wuxia's divine crystal. How dare you? Xianxia's face changed, but he did not dare to move because no matter how fast he was not as fast as Yanran. If Yanran did not want to live, Wuxia would have to die with her. Xiangshan, you dog, one day you will get what you deserve. Yiqinghan. Yanran will go first. Yanran smiled miserably, and then her hand suddenly burst forth with divine power. She grabbed at Wuxia's head, and at the same time her hand below suddenly grabbed at his back. You're courting death. Xingshan was enraged, and the entire pavilion was torn apart by his aura. Flowers, grass and trees were sent flying. At the same time he brandished the spear in his hand, and a strange beast shadow condensed from the power of space roared and rushed towards Yanran. The domineering power made even the tens of millions of warriors in Grace City, 100 miles away, instantly change their expressions. Monarch Yanran was not afraid of the strange beast condensed by Xingshan's space power. She was very clear that she was absolutely no match for Xingshan. But at this moment, what made her incomparably terrified was that Wuxia's body actually moved. He quickly crushed a jade talisman in his hand and his body actually lit up. Then a powerful suction force pulled Wuxia away. Monarch Yanran was pushed back a few steps by an inexplicable force. Xingshan, don't kill her. Wait for me, I want to torture this bitch to death. Before Wuxia's body disappeared, a voice transmission sounded in Xingshan's ear. Xingshan was overjoyed and instantly understood that this must be the jade talisman that Xiong gave to Wuxia to save his life, and it was probably related to the Eternal Palace. In the past, Lord Devour also created such a jade talisman, and it instantly sucked people into the Soul Emperor Pavilion. Immediately he grinned and slightly retracted part of his space power. With a loud bang, Monarch Yanran was hit and blood spurted out from her mouth. Bitch, you want to harm me? I want to see with my own eyes how you will be humiliated to death by Wuxia, haha. Xingshan strode downwards and flew towards Monarch Yanran, who had half of her body smashed into the ground. His hand formed a claw and he wanted to grab Yanran. Get lost. Suddenly, a loud roar sounded, and then under Xingshan's astonished gaze, a fiery red figure quietly teleported over. On the surface of his body, there were 10 silver spears revolving around his body, and his eyes were cold as if an ancient god of war had descended. It's you, Yiqinghan? Are finally here. All of Monarch Yanran's bones and internal organs were shattered, and her face was drained of blood. Her body was in excruciating pain, but at this moment her beautiful eyes suddenly brightened. Looking at the familiar back, she smiled sweetly. At this moment she felt that even if she died now it would be worth it. Yiqinghan, ha. There was a path to heaven, but you didn't take it. Instead you barged into the doorless hell? Die for me. Xingshan laughed out loud. His hair and robes fluttered even though there was no wind. His long spear turned into a series of afterimages as it danced in the air. Then an even bigger beast shadow smashed towards Yiqinghan and Yanran. Don't talk. Don't resist and take care of your wounds. Yiqinghan looked at the phantom in the sky mockingly and said gently to Yanran. The moment the phantom beast smashed down, he took Yanran into the War Imperial Palace, and then stood proudly, preparing to resist Xingshan's attack head-on. Boom! The ground within 100 miles shook, and even Grace City, which was 100 miles away, shook violently. Dust covered the sky, and a huge, deep pit appeared in Yanran's little hut. The explosion resounded in the sky, and even the cities thousands of miles away could hear it. Before the dust had completely settled, Xingshan's originally ecstatic expression instantly turned ashen. His eyes were filled with disbelief. A fiery red figure flew out from the deep pit, carrying Monarch Yanran on his back. He looked at Xingshan arrogantly and sneered, Xiong is not in the divine world. Who else in the divine world can fight with me? Xingshan, prepare to die. Chapter 12:21. His strongest attack. Yiqinghan was completely unscathed. Xingshan was at a loss. Even an ordinary 9th-grade supreme martial artist would vomit a few mouthfuls of blood after being hit by him. Could it be that Yiqinghan's strength had reached Xiong's level? This was simply impossible. No matter how talented Yiqinghan was, it was still impossible. Moreover, if Yiqinghan had such strength, he would have been dead the moment they met. Xingshan was slightly relieved at this thought, but he was still retreating rapidly until he was above Divine Grace City. Only then did he look at Yi Qinghan with a hideous smile. At the same time he quickly sent a message to Wuxia, asking him to send the Ice Queen over as soon as possible. Since he had completely surrendered to Yi Qinghan was his mortal enemy. If Yi Qinghan wanted to deal with Xianxia, he would kill them first. Yi Qinghan did not move. He just stood in the air above Yanran's little hut. He turned his head and stared at Yanran, who was behind him, and sent a message. Just now, Yanran sent a message saying that Xianxia had gone to the endless void and would not be back for a while. This news shocked him greatly. At this moment he could not care less about killing Xianxia. He needed to understand the situation first. After a while Yi Qinghan had completely grasped the situation that Yanran had grasped. His eyes turned and he had a plan. He immediately sent a message to Yanran. Do you have any other important people? Let me bring you to a safe place first. Only Yan Hong and the other two are also members of the Black Phoenix tribe. Yanran had a faint smile on her face. Her pale oval face was flushed, and the blood at the corner of her mouth made her look even more alluring. Although her injuries were almost healed by Yi Qinghan's soul ring, she was still entangled with Yi Qinghan like an octopus. She felt that ever since the moment her parents and clansmen were killed, she had never felt as safe and warm as she did now. Yi Qinghan's timely appearance had revived her originally dead heart. His tyrannical strength had also given her hope, and her heart was also intoxicated. Which woman in the immortal world didn't like the strong? Moreover, it was an expert who was loyal and affectionate to him. Yi Qinghan teleported downwards and shouted at the two women who were still stunned, "Don't resist, I'll take you away." After throwing Yanran and her two tribesmen into the War Monarch Palace, Yi Qinghan turned into a dragon and flew up into the sky without even looking at Xianxia, who had been targeting him. Xianxia shouted angrily. The black spear in his hand danced and another strange beast image condensed in the air. A strong pressure suppressed all the cultivators in Divine Grace City who wanted to fly over to watch the show. It's Xianxia's sovereign. Who is he fighting with? Why does that man in fiery red armor look so familiar? Why is Sovereign Yanran being carried by him? Yi Qinghan, it's Yi Qinghan. How dare he appear in the immortal world so openly? Is Sovereign Yanran being controlled by him? Although it happened abruptly, a few venerables in the city immediately used their divine senses to investigate. As soon as Xianxia made his move, all the cultivators in the city were alarmed. Countless cultivators flew out from the nearby cities and flew towards Xianxia. Obviously no one knew what had happened. However, the name Yi Qinghan alone was enough to cause a sensation in the immortal world. In an instant, countless cultivators from the immortal world teleported to Xianxia's location. Facing Xianxia's attack, Yi Qinghan's lips curled into a mocking smile. He did not counterattack. Instead, under the shocked gazes of Xianxia and the countless cultivators, a fiery red rhombus-shaped gem on his forehead flashed with a red light. Then he disappeared. In the next second, Yi Qinghan's figure appeared hundreds of thousands of miles away. When he continued to fly high up in the sky, everyone was dumbfounded. They looked as if they had seen a ghost. At that time, the phantom of the exotic beast that Xianxia had condensed with the power of space was only 10,000 meters away from Yi Qinghan. The surrounding space was vibrating because of Xianxia's attack. How could Yi Qinghan teleport? That was the biggest joke in the world. But the truth was the same as the mistress. Whether you believed it or not, she was there, ignoring all the losers. All she cared about was money. Infertility. When Yi Qinghan's figure turned into a small dot and disappeared in the sky, everyone came to their senses. They all knew that the perverted Yi Qinghan had just returned and now he had left again. But this time he seemed even more perverted. Xianxia's mouth opened slightly. His eyes were filled with confusion, fear, and of course, disbelief. The fire god battle armor was an ancient treasure. Very few people in the god world knew about it, much less this fire god battle armor. One couldn't teleport when space was shaking. This was a widely recognized rule in the god world. The space was unstable, how could one use space to teleport? But Yi Qinghan did it. Xianxia blinked his eyes. He thought about how he was perfectly fine when he attacked him with all his strength. He couldn't help but feel a chill in his soul. A moment later, when Xianxia still didn't understand how Yi Qinghan did it, the space above God Grace City started to shake. Then a few people appeared. Where is Yi Qinghan? Where is that B** T Yanran? Qingshan, I am asking you where he is? Where is he? Shintu Wuxia and Ice Queen appeared together. Shintu Wuya was in charge of the Eternal Hall. After he was sucked into the Eternal Hall, Ice Queen teleported him over at the fastest speed possible. Halfway there he heard that Yi Qinghan had appeared. He was even more anxious. At this moment he didn't see a single person. He couldn't help but holler in frustration. He ran. Qingshan said embarrassedly, Yi Qinghan saved that B** T Yen ran. Hua, Blood Knight Monarch Mo Shanghuang, and the others who had just rushed over were in an uproar when they heard this. Yi Qinghan actually escaped from under Qingshan's nose and even saved Monarch Yanran? Did Qingshan turn into a piece of trash? Or did he purposely let her go? Yi Qinghan's strength had reached grade 9 Supreme Martial Artist? The last point was obviously impossible. Shintu Wuxia shouted angrily, trash. The moment she said that, Qingshan and everyone else's expression changed. Qingshan was at the peak of grade 9. Even Shintu Xiong didn't dare to say that. Qingshan's face turned green. Just as he was about to explode, a slight movement in the sky attracted everyone's attention. Everyone was shocked. They looked up in disbelief at the red shadow that was getting closer and closer to them. Yi Qinghan actually came back. He actually came back in broad daylight. The first thought that came to everyone's mind was that Yi Qinghan had gone mad. But Qingshan's expression changed. He remembered what Yi Qinghan said. Shintu Xiong isn't in the God world. Who in the God world can fight me? When Qingshan thought about the strange things that had happened to Yi Qinghan earlier, a strong sense of danger welled up in his heart, and an indescribable thought surged up in his heart. Leave this place immediately, otherwise he would die and everyone here would die.